doing on that day. As many of, and everybody in our country remembers that day. And then political violence and hatred, which continues to be perpetrated across our country with the assassination of Charlie Kirk yesterday. And this continued political violence, and there's no place for that. Many of us, most of us in this room are either politicians or political appointees or elected officials in one capacity or the other. But when we gather together today and in all of our activities, we are for the best interest of our children. I thank us all for remembering that. So let's take a moment to pause, and reflect upon those lives lost and how we can do better to make our country a better place. Continue with our pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Chris, will you please call the roll?
Ron Slinger.
Here.
Julia Maxwell.
Here.
Hannah Neeskens.
Here.
Madeline Quinlan.
Here.
Renee Rasmussen.
Excuse for the time being, she's planning on joining us via Zoom.
Lisa Schmidt.
Here.
Tim Tharp.
Here.
Lydia Comstock.
Here.
Commissioner Christian's office.
Here.
Governor Jean Forte's office. Superintendent Headland.
Here.
Thank you. Montana Board of Public Education encourages the public to participate in board discussions. Persons who wish to participate should sign the public comment sign-in sheet and identify themselves to the board chair or executive director prior to the board's consideration of the matter in which the persons are concerned. Anyone wishing to participate in board discussions will be recognized by the chair in keeping with normal board parliamentary procedure. We discourage public comment on personnel matters and ask that you discuss these in private with the board chair. Montana Board of Public Education is a professional development unit provider. Attending a Board of Public Education meeting may qualify you to receive professional development units. Please complete the necessary information on the sign-in sheet if you are applying for professional development units. This time, we'd like to welcome any visitors who are in the room or online. Visitors wish to be identified.
Tyler Capice, Montana Office of Public Instruction.
Craig Barrington, Montana Office of Public Instruction. Okay. And is there any public comment at this time? All right. Seeing none, we'll proceed with our consent agenda. Okay, a motion to approve the consent agenda, starting on page 8.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as in your board packet. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And entertain a motion to adopt our agenda for these next 2 days.
Mr. Chair.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, we've got a motion by member Rasmussen, seconded by member Quinlan to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, we're on item number 1. As noted earlier, we are meeting in Dillon, Montana, and have introductions here and from both of the superintendents. We'll start with the elementary superintendent, Randy Shipman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to Dillon. We're very excited to host you guys. This is kind of exciting. So good morning. My name is Randy Shipman, and I'm the superintendent of the Dillon Elementary District. As many of you know, we're 2 separate districts here. So Dr. Patterson will talk on the high school here in a minute. I've been in this district for 22 years and 14 years as the middle school principal and 8 as the superintendent here. And overall, I'm starting my 38th year in education after 10 years as a history teacher in Whitefish, 2 years as a history teacher in Umatilla, Oregon, and 4 years as a paraprofessional in Missoula at Hellgate Middle School. I originally came to Montana to go to law school, and I ended up going into education. So here we are. Again, I want to welcome you to our district and to our community in beautiful southwestern Montana. Luckily, the smoke's not too bad today. We appreciate all you guys do for education and our students, and are excited to host you here in Dillon. I myself have spent my entire adult life coaching, teaching, and working with young people. And throughout my career in education, and I'm so appreciative of your words a few minutes ago, I've been deeply committed to fostering environments where students not only achieve academic success, but also grow socially and emotionally. And this is not only true for our high achieving students, but obviously for our at-risk students as well. And as someone who works with young people daily, I do know a little bit about the challenges they face. That's why here in Dillon, we're proud to provide a strong and supportive framework that prepares students for success both inside and outside the classroom. We have a dedicated staff, we have a collaborative culture and student-centered philosophy, and those are the backbones of our continued success here in the district. And I just want to get one quick example because McCall said I had the opportunity to do that here. As an example, one of our long-standing policies here, and one I truly believe sets us apart, is our cell phone policy, which has been in place for over 20 years in this district. And just so you know, we don't allow cell phones in our school, never have and never will. Long before the recent research emerged on the negative impact of excessive device use, our district prioritized keeping students focused and engaged by eliminating cell phone use during the school day. And I know you guys can't work miracles and make that happen today, but I know you have lots of influence, and I know we have a lot of superintendents on your board. We are proud here to have created a learning environment that supports face-to-face interaction, deeper learning, and fewer distractions. The dangers are too great for our students, and I did not need any research data to show that threat to me. As other schools across our state and across our nation struggle with this concept, for us it was easy. We just do not allow cell phones at school, as the dangers are very clear. In fact, if we really want to protect our students and are aware of the recent research on the dangers of cell phone use with our young people, it might be prudent to look at banning cell phones in our schools, go farther than Governor Gianforte's recommendation. If you read the book, The Anxious Generation, which we just read as a book study in our district, it will freak you out. Or if you watch the #1 rated Netflix documentary titled Unknown Number, the high school catfish, you'll see that this issue is too critical to the safety of our children to not act. And I know we have we have higher ed in the audience, and we have unions in the audience. We have all kinds of people here that would have great influence in this. So I ask you again to consider going farther than Governor Gianforte's recommendation and ban cell phone use in Montana schools completely for the safety and well-being of our students. Moving on, we have an outstanding dedicated staff who work tirelessly for our most prized resource, and we have great kids, which I hope you see today as you walk around our school on a tour later, who are learning in a safe and positive environment. That kind of the safety is critical, and this is why we need you to wear the badges while you're here, things like that. I'm really proud of the strides our district continues to make. I'm confident that together, and obviously working with the high school district, we'll keep building a learning community where every child can thrive. The students are the reason every one of us in this room are here. None of us would exist in this position if not for them. Therefore, our focus is always on the students and their education and well-being. I'm excited to take you on a short tour this afternoon and showcase the outstanding schools, students, and staff we have here in Dillon and the wonderful things that are going on in our district. It is the first few days of school, so you may not see a lot of robust instruction going on. We are, I think, 7 or 8 days into it, but we are going to have you exposed to some of our kindergartners in PE and then some of our 7th graders in PE, so you get 2 different perspectives. So you might need to shed the coats and get involved with them if you want, but you don't have to. Anyways, that's scheduled for 1 p.m. this afternoon. It'll happen shortly after you eat lunch with our students. We're also very proud of our district. We just had, with our recent big Labor Day weekend, many of you probably know about, we have a lot of businesses in town that buy beef and buy pork and donate to our school. We just had over $30,000 worth of Mr. Fitzgerald back here, I'll introduce in a minute, is in charge of our food service, and about $30,000 worth of meat just provided to our district. You will eat some of that Beaverhead County produced beef this afternoon at lunch. And I also know that we have somebody that is we also have a salad bar, so you can partake in that as well. At this point, I would like to introduce a couple people that are critical to our success here at school and assist in your visit. I just talked about Mr. Fitzgerald. He's been, you want to stand up, Greg? He's our elementary principal. He's been here for 17 years. And then Mr. Joel Rogers next to him is the middle school principal. He has been here for 8 years. Mr. Herman, Chad Herman. He's the guy running around doing all the technology, so be sure if you have any technology issues, run him down. And I don't know if Mrs. English is here, but Mrs. English, my district secretary, the one that greeted you coming in, probably has been instrumental in putting a lot of this together. So she's been here for 12 years. Anyways, if you need anything during your stay with us, please let one of us know. We also have a van that will be chauffeuring a lot of you around. Either I'll do that or McCall will do that. We'll see how that works. And then finally, just a couple quick housekeeping things. Do please keep your badge on while you're here in school, and as long as you have that on, you can kind of go wherever you want. The bathrooms are located right outside this door and right across the hall. We'll probably keep that door closed as we have kids kind of moving throughout the hall, but if it gets too hot or too cold in here, please let us know and we can turn it up or turn it down. Feel free to take advantage of all the goodies back here that both our district and I think McCall provided. We'll return you to our lunchroom at 12:30 after visiting the J.C. Park where the high school teen tones will be singing, and we'll get you fed a great lunch. So with that, I again want to welcome you to our district, say how excited we are to host you, and thanks for all you do. Dr. Patterson is Dr. Patterson. Sorry.
Thank you. And again, welcome to Dillon. My name is Josh Patterson. I'm the superintendent for Beaver Head County High School District. And I want to thank you all for those who were able to make it. I think most of you did to our evening social last night at our BW Lodge gym and the foyer there. And it was a great turnout and appreciate that. Loved being able to socialize and get to know each of you a little bit, where you're from and some of your history. For those of you that weren't there, maybe didn't get to talk to me, just a little bit about my background. If you hear a slight accent, it is because I am from the state of Georgia originally. However, I've been in the great state of Montana for 12 of the past 14 years. Took a little stint back during to Georgia during COVID to take care of the family. Then I came back. But I was 5 years in Sanders County at Knoxville School District. Then I was 3 years in Miles City with the Miles City Unified School District. 4 years in Brockton on the east end of the Fort Peck Assiniboine Sioux Reservation. Now I'm starting my first year here in Dillon at BCHS. Go Bees. So again, welcome to Dillon. I'd like to thank Randy and his staff and principals for their hospitality and agreeing to host it in this great facility, much more accommodating than what we could provide at the high school. So I'm glad that we could work together and have you here. And so a couple things I would like to bring to your attention. Just a couple issues. I know we all talked about in the past about how important school funding is. And I realize with the state interim commission going on right now, we'll have to see what the results of those meetings are and to see how school funding will be affected or impacted in the future. And I understand that the Board of Public Education is more of a policy setting body, and that's more that the funding portion or mechanism of education is more upon the state and the legislators. However, so policy related, a couple things I'd like to bring to your attention that maybe could be a point of discussion in the future would be educator licensure. One thing that I've noticed in my experience, and one positive thing, is that we've become much more flexible in terms of licensure, much more accommodating, the reciprocity between states, bringing teachers over from internationally across the pond. We have great reciprocity and we're able to get teachers licensed and waive some of the barriers to getting those licensed. There's teachers licensed into getting them in our schools. I do think that that's impacted the teacher shortage crisis in Montana. However, that crisis, if you look on OPI's teacher job portal, you can see there's multiple pages, as I'm sure Superintendent Halden can attest to. So this crisis is still very real, very tangible in the state. One thing that I did notice though, is for new graduates in Montana, state graduates from right here at Montana Western here in town, which you'll be visiting this in the next couple of days. MSU in Bozeman, UM in Missoula, and all the other great institutions in our state, new teacher graduates in Montana are at a disadvantage. And I'll explain why. They go through these programs that we certify as great programs to educate these new young teachers. And one would think that after passing all their classes and graduating from these institutions that they would be qualified to teach in our schools. That's not the case because they have to pass an exam. The exam right now that's universally recognized by our higher institutions is the praxis exam. So, for example, a new teacher could go through his or her entire 4 years of college, pass all their courses, maybe even graduate with honors, not pass the praxis, and therefore that institution will not recognize them for licensure. And where do our undergraduate teachers go? Out of Montana. We're already disadvantaged because other states, Washington, North Dakota, Wyoming, the teacher salaries there are much higher. Although with the STARS Act, we are now becoming more competitive with that. However, that licensure requirement that leans so heavily on the praxis exam, on that passage of that exam, is undercutting, I think, some of our homegrown teacher candidates. That's just something I wanted to plug and mention to you, something to consider in the future, that might be something that could be considered or addressed. And like you, as an educator myself, I don't want to water down the system. I believe there should be high expectations and a high bar to set for our educators. However, if we're going to provide that flexibility for teachers from other states or even from other countries, I think we should certainly consider some type of flexibility for our homegrown teachers. So just wanted to mention that. I appreciate your time and welcome you to Dillon. We'll look forward to seeing you later on this afternoon to see our Teen Tones choir perform the national anthem at our veterans ceremony in the JC Park, and a tour later on at the high school of our new Agriculture, Science, and Technology building. Once again, thank you. Welcome to Dillon.
Thank you.
Moving on with my report, since our last meeting, had weekly executive committee meetings, participated with McCall in interviews for our new program officer. NASB Finance and Audit Committee meeting was done via Zoom. I was able to attend the School Administrators of Montana Administrators Institute, and both as a participant and as a presenter, and co-presented with several others from Cognia on the new accreditation option schools have. School Funding Interim Committee meeting was on August 14th. That was a Zoom meeting, and then we're preparing for a face-to-face meeting this coming Monday and Tuesday, and that is going to be back in Helena at our MSDB bi-monthly meetings. Attended Title I training in Glendive. Really appreciate it, and tell your folks, Susie, I liked the bingo, or not the Jeopardy game that they played there. And since I was the most senior member in attendance, they put all the hard questions on me, and I actually got a few of them right. But that was a good information at the Jeopardy at that. At a NEMAS meeting, just wasn't the same without Mr. Patterson there. Sure, but he shared he's from Brockton, so it was nice to connect with him again. Was invited to participate on the 250th commission meeting a few weeks ago, and looking forward to what that group is going to be putting together. The OPI math implementation webinar series, and I have been plugging that to all of the teachers in my county. She did a fabulous job with that, and I'm encouraging also everybody, if you're teaching math at all or have questions about that, please jump on. I mean, I think I'm anticipating probably the smoothest rollout of new standards that we've ever had because of that webinar. So again, kudos to OPI for this. She's doing a great job with that. An opportunity to present to a new teacher class being put on by the Golden Triangle Curriculum Consortium. And then, as I always share, the stuff I'm doing within the mental health arena, with the new bill coming through the legislature, I was able to present QPR 8 times within the last month and a half to a total of 174 different people. Did youth mental health first aid to the Fairview School staff and taught 24 people there. I'll be teaching QPR multiple times next Thursday, Fallon County Safety Days. I was told probably about 150 to 200 people there over that process. And then participated in a couple of different CISM debriefing. That is mental health supports that we provide for first responders. So continue keeping mental health at the forefront of everything that I do, and I really appreciate it. Superintendent Shipman's. I read The Anxious Generation a couple of years ago, and it really changed my outlook on things. And I plug that at every single QPR mental health first aid class that I teach. I tell people, if you really want to know the research behind this, you've got to read the book. And then Also was able to get my two rural schools up and running and we're off and I think we're in like week 3 or 4 now and everything seems to be going well. And then to address Dr. Patterson, we are still short one teacher at one of my schools and we would, if anybody's looking to come work at a extremely remote rural elementary school in eastern Montana, I could be happy to give you the information. Always recruiting. It's like, Dr. Swinger, always recruiting members from Miles Community College. So that is everything on, as far as my report, on in our packet, you see on page 24 of 302 is our standing committees. We talked about these at our last meeting. And so it's a clean copy of our committees, including our special committee. As review of the bylaws. They call them special committees, not ad hoc committees, and so correcting our language on that. So with the addition of our AI and technology committee led by Dr. Neeskens and really appreciate her expertise and interest in that area there. Are there any questions on those committee assignments? Moving on, we do have a few action items here. We had some cleanup on our bylaws and McCall made a lot of suggested edits here that she ran through the executive committee and they all met approval from there. And so, and you see on the meetings, cleaning things up just a little bit on rather than conference call or the language of virtually, although we were the last time we actually had a conference call using that vernacular, but you can see those new bylaws and edits on up through page 28. And so on behalf of the executive committee, I would move approval of the bylaws as updated. For a second.
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Quinlan. Any discussion on the bylaws? Any public comment? All those in favor of the bylaws as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Page 29, you see our meeting calendar and tentative agendas for the calendar year 2026. January in Helena. March, we go to Ronan. In May, back to MSDB in Great Falls. July is Helena, and then in response to our trip here to the west and my 505-mile drive to Dillon yesterday, we are meeting in my backyard on September 24th, literally in our dinner the night before. You are invited to a barbecue in literally in my backyard on Wednesday night as we get there. So, but we'll be meeting in Glendive on September 24th, 25. And then back at MSU for our November meeting. Entertain a motion to approve our proposed agenda and calendar for 2026. Or I will make the motion, says chair of the executive committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Neeskens. Any discussion on our calendar 2026? Any public comment? I'll give some public comment. The gal who checked me in at the hotel yesterday was asking, well, who are we and why are we here? And so it's one of the things I really love about this is that we are, two times a year, we take our work out of Helena and get out onto the road here. So I'm really happy to see our March and September meetings out into our schools, and I certainly appreciate the effort that's involved for schools to host us. We are not too needy, but we do have technology needs, and we have some expectations that in order to pull off a state meeting in a remote location different than in the capital. So we certainly appreciate the efforts that those schools make. And so the highlight of my year is when we get out into our schools and get to actually be part of those. There's no other public comment. All those in favor of approving the calendar for 2026 as presented signify by saying aye. All right, now page 30, you see our strategic plan. And at this time, I'm gonna turn things over to McCall for explanation on this as we think about our strategic plan and how that might kind of bleed right into her report for the strategic planning packet.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. The language that you see in number 1 was actually recommended to us from Board Member Quinlan. This was just a recommendation, so I wanted to make sure that you could actually see it here in red. That was verbatim what you had given me. And then you'll also see a couple of changes in number 2 and then also number 5. We had written there, assign the executive director, but obviously that may be fluid. The language that comes to us actually from statute says a member of the board or their designee. So I just thought it was more appropriate that we put that language here. It may be me, it may also be a member of the board, and so I just put that language here just to be a little bit more consistent. And so we know that this document is a little bit more static. I think we do a really good job of updating it, and I think it is still relevant to the work that you all do. But I do think that as we continue the work of strategic planning, that I think that we're going to talk about here in a minute. I think that we will look to this to help still guide the work that we're going to do, but wanted to have you all see the updates here.
Thank you. So I would make the motion then to approve the strategic plan for 25-26 as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Board Member Maxwell. Any discussion on our strategic plan? Any public comment? All's in favor of the strategic plan as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any questions or anything for me under my chair report? All right, moving on, item number 2, page 32 in your packet, Secretary Director Flynn.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I put together a 1-pager so you guys could see sort of a plan for the upcoming year. I know that there's a desire from the board to think a little bit more about a plan that is more dynamic for the board. Thinking a little bit more about a vision. The board, as you know, we have a mission, we don't have a vision. Something that the board can think about that maybe can be a little bit more actionable. We just looked at our strategic plan. We look at it annually. It's not something that, you know, we typically look to that's, like I said, more dynamic. And so I put this together. I did meet with NASB. They were really helpful in helping me think through like how we might want to put together something that you all can look at each board meeting. And then sort of the work that we can do in between each of those meetings. So I'll just kind of go through this and I'd love your feedback as I go through this of things that we might want to think about adding to this in between each of the meetings or other ideas that you have. I really want your feedback because again, this is something that I put on paper, but this is really your plan. And so if you can give me feedback as we go through this, obviously this meeting is sort of our kickoff. It's the presentation of this 1-pager. This 1-pager I'll probably put into some kind of Excel so that we can really keep notes and build this out into something much more with action items and things that we can really plug in here for other groups and stakeholders and other people that we want to engage. I think that it will not stay on this 1 page, but this is just for us to review today. So we'll review sort of this plan, the roles, the expectations, and then, yeah, I'm really hoping that we can sort of confirm where we want to go from here, the timeline, and then those stakeholders that we're hoping to include. You'll see that I don't have anything for us to review in November, and that was by design. Our November meeting is chaos. I think we all know that. I see Angela nodding her head because it's chaos for them as well. There's just so many different groups that we meet with. You know, we're going from one meeting room to another meeting room. We're meeting with one group to another group. There's just a lot going on in November, and I think your minds are probably thinking in multiple directions, and so I really wanted us to be able to focus. So I thought it was good timing for us to be able to take from now until our January meeting to really think through, gather data, gather information. I think it's also a good time for me to be able to get some data from all of you to be able to sort of be getting information from you, like what you're thinking about, some important topics from each of you, like what's really important to you right now. Things that are top of mind. I can still gather that information from you. It doesn't need to happen here at a boardroom. And so I think those are things that can still happen between the meetings. In January, I'm hoping that we can like review our mission statement. And I think all of you, if you just look back at the document that we just looked at, our mission statement is basically driven by the Constitution. It's very basic, but I think it's very strong in that it comes straight from the Constitution. And then I think that we can take what we see in our mission and we can discuss a vision statement, what we want that to look like. There's some pre-reading I think that you all would really benefit from reviewing that NASB has. There's a couple documents that are really good that they give to other states to review. And I think that at that meeting, we could look at drafting a vision statement. I think that AI could really help us with a lot of this work. Not that I think we just want to plug and go from there, but I think that we could really use it as a tool to help us sort of draft something and think about where we want to go from there. And then I think between January and our March meeting, obviously kind of where we want to go from there. We have a draft vision. If there's still some things we want to work on, certainly you guys can give me some direction. In our March meeting, I think we can continue thinking about our vision statement, refining our vision statement, but I think we'll want to move on to our commitments and initial strategic priorities. These are things, if you remember, Board Member Slinger was talking about, really thinking about like, what are some big things that we all care really deeply about, that you can all agree to. I think student success is probably one of those top priorities that all of you probably agree is really important. So just thinking about like, what are some of those commitments? And then thinking about what are some of those strategic goals beneath that this board can do. Obviously, our strategic plan is somewhat built off of that now. But I think what it's missing are those like action items. And so I think we can look to the strategic plan that we have now, but really like take that, but make it better and really build off of that. And so we'll be using that, but sort of redeveloping it, reviewing the commitments in initial strategic priorities, identifying 1 to 2 critical issues, establishing those related goals and key stakeholders. And then this is different than we typically have. Like, what are those metrics of success? That's something that I don't think we've ever done. And I do think that that will probably be a bigger conversation for this group. Because what a metric of success for the board is, will be very different. Because we are by nature reactionary. And so I just think that that's something to keep in mind of like how we measure that. And so I think working with OPI and working with our partners at OCHI and how we want to engage them and our other education stakeholders and really bring them in to help us figure out those measurements of success is really important. And then next June and July, I think we will want to reach out to our stakeholders. We'll want to prepare some kind of initial draft and framework, figure out what those deliverables are from our May board meeting. And then for our July board meeting, we'll hopefully be reviewing our first draft. And we'll be planning to incorporate that feedback. And then you all will be giving us direction for revisions. We'll be working on those revisions in between our meetings, and then next September, hopefully working on some kind of draft. So I'll come full circle a year from now. What questions? Yeah. Board Member Quinlan.
Thank you. So I going to the question of when to involve key stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
It seems kind of late to initially involve stakeholders in May of next year. And I guess I'm just asking, what are you thinking for the October through December period here? Is it mostly engaging board members, or is there a way to engage stakeholders even as we develop a draft vision statement?
I'm open to feedback. I had mostly in mind of engaging board members, but I'm super open to also engaging stakeholders. I think the questions might be different.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to work that out.
That's just my initial thoughts. I wasn't sure if NASB had any recommendations in that
Yeah.
regard. So, all right, thank you.
Question. At one of our meetings, we had discussed briefly the potential to have NASB do some sort of facilitated process. What are your thoughts on that at this time?
I have asked them what that looks like what they could be involved in. I've yet to hear back from them, like a proposal of what that might look like. That doesn't mean that they can't or that they won't. I think that should they come back to us and be like, yes, we can definitely do that. Where I could see them be the most beneficial would be them supporting like the vision, like working out with you guys, helping you establish a vision and establishing those commitments. That's where I see them being the most supportive, is like the facilitation piece. I think I can draft things all day long. I can put things on paper. I don't know that I'm the right person to help you all like be the facilitator. So that's where I think that they can be the most supportive to you, and that would be my ask to them.
I have a question also for the September board meeting at the end, today. It says stakeholder engagement plan. So are you referencing involving them in the strategic planning process, or having a plan to engage stakeholders and knowing who we are across the state and they can reach out? Like, is the stakeholder engagement plan to have them involved in creating the process? Or is it also a thought of, okay, how can the board get out there more to where we can be involved in education across the state and be more well-known for what we do? I think that's extremely important. Just because before you came to our My Northwest Mass meeting and recruited tried to recruit for the board, I didn't know what we were and what we did. And I think that teachers need to know that. So I just was hoping we could add that into our strategic planning somehow.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Berger Maxwell. I think that when we're thinking about like the strategic plan itself, the stakeholder engagement in my mind is more about like how we engage them in our success. But I also think, to your point, I think it is important that we also are thinking about how we also are getting out. And I think us being in Dillon and us going to Ronan and Glendive and us trying to show up to other meetings is also a good way to do that. I mean, I try to go to things, but I also think it's good for you all to try to go to things in your areas. And so if we can build that in and have conversations about how we divide and conquer in those ways, you all are all across the state at this point. I think that we are very diverse in areas across the state. So if there are ways that we can also build ideas around how you all go to different meetings, or different areas and whatever, we can definitely have that conversation as well.
I had a question. When you're talking about, where is it, the deliverables, for, in February, you're talking about deliverables from the January board meeting. Are you talking about we should make a list of deliverables during February and March, or are you talking about reporting the results of deliverables that we made a list during our January board meeting? Are we talking about results or the beginning?
Yeah, so board member Schmidt, that's actually like deliverables for me, what I need to be doing in those months in between. So like, you all are gonna be doing a bunch of things, and then like, you're gonna be saying, McCall, here's your list of things to do. Those are the deliverables to me that I need to go work on in between.
Okay, so we established them at the
Assignments, yeah, maybe I chose it wrong. Yeah,
and then you get them done, and then in
Yeah.
March you tell us about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
McCall,
board member Rasmussen.
thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I was late. I had a little bit of trouble logging on. As we go through this strategic plan, I think it's very important that everyone who wants to contribute understands really our walking orders. That is our constitutional mandate, which is, to be honest with you, not another OPI. it's more 60,000 feet and might get down to 30 or 20 sometimes, but it is more overall. And I think that that's really important for us to remember, that we're not supposed to be in the weeds. There are other entities, including our Constitution, which guarantees local control, and OPI, and of course, other governments. And I think that that's really important, that we know where we are and a little bit more about, and maybe that needs to be discussed first, is who we are and why we exist according to the Constitution. Because otherwise, I think that we can spend a lot of time saying these are great things and these are wonderful ideas, but they don't fit in with our mission.
Yeah, Board Member Rasmussen, I'm really glad you brought that up because I think that's really important. And I did glaze over that a little bit when I mentioned that our mission statement really does guide the work that we do, and we get our mission statement from the Constitution. And also I think our partners at the OPI and our partners at OCHI are really going to help us reach our metrics of success. We alone aren't going to be able to do that just by the nature of our work. And so by partnering with them, that's the way I think that we will be able to find success in setting metrics. And I think that we've found that that's been really difficult for us in the past. This might be a little bit of a tangent, but there's a requirement that each agency has to set up an annual plan where you have a work plan that has measures and metrics. And the Board of Public Ed kind of gets a pass on that. And the reason is because we don't have those. And it's long been in sort of, when we go to the Education Interim Budget Committee, Representative Beatty kind of says, oh, thanks Board of Public Ed, this is a really beautiful document, thank you guys for kind of playing along, and your strategic plan looks great. But we recognize that you aren't set up like other agencies. We recognize that you aren't set up the same. And it is just very interesting. And so I think we recognize that we don't have metrics like other agencies do. But I think I hear you all saying in a sense that we want to sort of engage in some of that work. But we can do that if we engage with OCHI and OPI and some of our other partners, and we won't be able to succeed if we don't do that. And so the only way we'll get there is if we partner with our stakeholders. And I also hear you saying that we'll do that. If we do that earlier, we might be more successful. So good ideas all around.
Thank you, Renee. I appreciate that perspective. I just did a quick head count. We got at least 8 current or former district superintendents in the room, and every one of them has faced the issues when you have boards that want to really dig in and get into the weeds on things, and how that can kind of hinder the work that everybody else is trying to do. And so, as we say many times during the legislative session, we need to make sure we're staying in our lane. And if we choose to go down a different pathway, we need to make sure that, number one, it's in our mandate and it's appropriate for us to do so. And secondly, make sure that we're not hindering the work of others. We want to make sure that we're supporting it. We want to make sure that we're partners with OCHI, we're partners with OPI, and that we are not getting involved in their business and complicating things, which again, many of us have witnessed in other areas. And so I thank you, Renee, for reminding us of, staying within our, not only our mission and our vision, but our constitutional mandate. A very good point. Something I noted, many of us are going to be at NASB in Austin on October 27th, 29. And I'm not sure if there's time or be appropriate just to kind of have a few minutes with Paulo or somebody else from NASB to kind of say, okay, talk to us about this process. And I also recognize we might have a quorum there, so we ought to be careful if we're all together at the same time, but maybe just an informational session just to hear from them as far as comments on our work, and give every people who haven't had a chance to engage with Paulo an opportunity to ask him some questions about what this is, because everybody's governance structure is different across the country, and he's familiar with all those different aspects of it. Anything else on our strategic planning timeline? Dr. McLean.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, this is a great conversation and, from where the university system sits, I would offer that, we don't see it as any type of a complication. We see this opportunity at a strategic plan as something that will truly lend itself to serious conversation between our two agencies, our K-12 partners, our post-secondary campuses across the state, to lean into so many of the initiatives that we are working on together. About 4 months ago, we hosted a group coming from several parts of the country because we were competing for a rural talent lab development grant. And one of the things that I think was so convincing to them about our proposal was our insistence to them that the timing could not be better for an award to go to Montana for this work. And we cited things like Perkins funding, the expansion of dual enrollment funding that had just happened at the legislature to tribal colleges, to our community college partners. We talked about the STARS Act, not only the pieces that would go to enhance teacher salaries, but also the piece that starts on page 31 of that statute and outlines a clear pathway for developing future-ready students. And we also talked about the MUS and all of the other things that we are doing to intentionally deliver high school students with the workforce credentials that they need well ahead of high school graduation. And so to see the strategic plan conversation emerge as I did on this agenda, we were very excited because we think it's another great piece where the timing just could not be better. And there is a real opportunity for us to really create even more intentional synergy between our K-12 partners and our post-secondary partners. And we just look so forward to that good work with each of them.
Thank you. McCall, now to your report.
Mr. Chair, nothing else under my report. I guess I do have one more thing. We did have a new coworker start work on Monday. Really excited to have her, Leanne Munkers, joined us. Monday is a program officer, really supporting the office, mostly on charter school work, but also excited to engage her in anything else policy that we need. She's been, I mean, we've known her for 2.5 days and she's been really great. So I'm excited to have her. If you guys are in Helena or around Helena, please pop in and say hi to her. She's a great addition so far. So happy to have her and yeah, she'll be great. Thank you.
Before we move on to item number 3, note for everybody in the room, coffee has arrived and Doc Meredith is from the 82 Coffee Company, a great veteran-owned organization based right here in Dillon. So get yourself some Java as we hand things over to State Superintendent Dillon for item number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am honored to be here today. I appreciate all of you hosting us here in Dillon. And I just wanted to mention a couple things from the comments a superintendent shared. Superintendent Shipman mentioned the cell phones, and I actually have the governor's cell phone letter right here with all my notes on it because I'm doing an interview later today about cell phone free schools. So I appreciate your efforts in Townsend. We had done similar work before the letter came out, and the letter just helped us have that conversation with parents. So that was appreciated. I do recognize that across the state of Montana, things look different in every school. So I do appreciate the flexibility for those some of those decisions to be made at the local level. But I do believe that it is the right direction to reduce screen time and help alleviate those mental health issues, anxiety, and keep our students focused on their schoolwork. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And Superintendent Patterson, as you talked about the Praxis scores, I appreciated that conversation. I know I was one of the folks, I can't remember if it was in my capacity as a board member or since I've been superintendent, that requested that we take a deeper look at some of our Praxis scores. And we did make some changes in recent meetings, or the board did update some Praxis scores, and some new tests have come to be. And really your expert is right over here from U of M, and she she has a lot of knowledge on the Praxis cut scores, so I would encourage you to continue to watch for those agenda items at Board of Public Ed meetings and to weigh in. Because Montana does have pretty rigorous standards for the Praxis scores compared to other states. And like you said, we want top-notch educators, but we also don't want to not, keep people from the field, based on one assessment. So, I would encourage you to watch for those agenda items and, provide input when those come to the board, because that regularly occurs. So then moving on into, my federal update. I'll run through a few updates and then I want to make sure I have plenty of time for my experts here. I have a great team that's going to present some information and reports for you. So as far as the federal update goes, I just want to mention that our federal funding has come in. We tried to continue to message to the field that we would receive those funds. They were appropriated by Congress. We were pretty much level funded in all areas. Some of the funding distribution changed because of the formulas. And so we've been working hard to make sure we communicate with the field in a timely manner and get as much messaging out as we can. I understand as a superintendent that it was still a bit challenging and unsettling, not having those allocations at the same time as you usually do all at once, and all of that brought some concern. However, we remained faithful that they would come in, and they did. We have a couple more that we're still loading at the OPI. And just this week, we received word that the final fiscal year 24 Title I Part C allocation would increase the GAN amount of Title I-C. So that new GAN will soon be issued. So there will be another GAN issued, and you will have another amount loaded into the e-grants here shortly. That's kind of in the weeds. Sorry about that. We'll make sure that makes more sense, and to the field and the folks working in that area, they will know what we mean. So the e-grants tour occurred, as you mentioned, and that's always a great time for superintendents, whether they really need a lot of assistance or that help. A lot of administrators go just so they can have that downtime, undistracted time to get their e-grants done. So our team did a great job at that. We're happy to meet with many new superintendents as well as veterans. I wanted to mention that the Department of Education has been communicating with us regularly. Secretary McMahon is doing her 50-state tour, and we look forward to welcoming her here soon. We have been in contact. And then the Every Student Succeeds Act and has not been updated. There's been a few updates, but not had a major overhaul or been updated since I worked on it previously at the OPI many years ago. So we're going to be working on updating that. The accountability system, we realized when that was ran this year to provide the report cards and the status of each school on those report cards. We realized we had some challenges that have come up in the business logic. That's kind of the back end coding information in the details. But I've been working closely with Dr. Mergel and her team, and we are excited about taking this opportunity to look at updating our accountability system, thinking about the indicators that go into that and the weights of those indicators. So as you know, attendance, student assessments, student growth, college and career ready. We don't have originally in the current model, there's not a lot of indicators. And so I feel like it's very timely as we're updating our future ready with and can align more of these components with the STARS Act. So there's more opportunities for schools and students to earn those points, if you will. And so we're gonna do an overhaul of that. I just went through a presentation with my colleagues in Indiana. They just completed updating their accountability system, and it was really interesting, really great. So I've taken the time this summer to meet with a lot of my colleagues and see what they're working on and see new work that's coming out from other states. So we're looking forward to heading in that direction with updating our accountability system. That will then lead to the report card updates. As many of you know, the 949 board and that legislation has been underway for a long time to update and create data modernization for our systems and our dashboards, like the gym system and the dashboards that come out of that. However, it's been a slow roll. It's a huge priority of mine. I have an executive staff member that's focused on that. We have created a whole pretty much new team that's on board and ready to move forward in data modernization. And so we're moving quickly and we're getting ready to ask for a few schools to pilot these systems, and we're gonna start seeing things go live. So we're very excited. And we also were able to connect through a grant that we have that to the same data modernization platform for the report cards. When I got to OPI, there were many dashboard programs that we were paying for in systems. And so for the purpose of efficiency and being responsible with our funds, we're going to have all of that on one platform. I think that makes the most sense and will be helpful for schools as well. So I want to clarify that Power School has that contract for the data modernization work. And that is that's going to be the system that has the dashboards on it. That's going to have the that's going to have the performance dashboards. If you have the direct connector, you can choose to have the direct connector or not have the direct connector. Whether you're a Power School or an Infinite Campus school, it doesn't matter. Either way, either Infinite Campus or Power School will work with this system. If you utilize the direct connector, you have less manual uploading to do and the information will feed seamlessly into this system. And then you will have all of the components for these dashboards. For the performance would be updated on the daily. So your school's dashboard, community facing, would have attendance, all of that updated on the daily. Your side, if you have principal credentials, you know, you can drill down to that level. Teachers have access to their classroom level. The community facing one is, you know, has more FERPA conditions on it, so more data privacy. And then the report card with the federal accountability system components will also live within that same system. So what we were excited about is when we got into the OPI, we sat down with Power School and tried to see what we could do to get this back on track and really moving and make sure there was something in it for the schools. So we were able to rework the contract and we were able to add the MTSS module, a risk analysis module. That's like the early warning system was in gyms. MTSS is going to be so powerful and amazing. Digital tool. I used to have an MTSS notebook like this, right? Where you had tabs of all the students' names where you put the interventions that you were working on with them. So we're really excited about this. If you don't sign the direct connector, your systems just won't have as many components or functionalities, but either way, it'll be a great system. So we're going to get that rolling here shortly. I'm excited to mention that the comp centers have been funded and are reopening right now. So we got that update. We worked with CCSSO on that and at Northwest, and I have been in close communication for a long time. I used to sit on their board many years ago. So they are now, they got the contract from Montana for the Northwest region. So we've been working with them on our state plan. So want to share that they're going to help us with strategic planning. We're getting rolling on that first thing. We've started some initial work. So look forward to seeing how we can align our work. We are happy to partner and work very closely with you guys and all of our partners in education. They're also going to help us with our school support of our schools that are struggling, as we talked about at the last meeting. And so we're excited for that. We're going to put some of our vacancies towards that effort, as well as have their resources now. So that's going to be very exciting. And they'll also help us a bit with special education and our future ready indicator creation and work facilitation. As far as MAST goes, I just want to mention that we're listening. The professional development sessions lately have gone over really well in the field. There was a whole entire day MAST summit that was well attended. And there are incredible tutorials and videos and webinars out there for any area that you may have a concern with. If makeup tests are a pain point, please watch that section and it might be a game changer. So make sure you check that out. There's a lot of great information out there. I think there was a lot of misunderstanding. We took all, our assessment team, when I say we, are just incredible and are very hardworking. They took all the feedback, they really listened, all the survey information and created an action plan to address each area of concern. And they have been very proactive. They've been reaching out to our TAC, and our technical assistance center to see what we can do to reduce the testing footprint, how we can address these concerns while maintaining data integrity and testing integrity, so assessment integrity. So please take a look at that. I think we're heading in a great direction. I wanted to mention that I will step out here in a little while. I have a call with the commissioner and I'm lucky enough to be sitting next to Dr. McLean right now as well. We are working really closely with OCHI on the future ready indicators for the STARS Act. I know the Department of Labor is working closely to get information from businesses and our partners in industries. And we want to make sure that educators have a voice. So we're partnering to put a board together, a committee together, to get feedback and make sure that we have that voice from all of you in the education world on what it means for a student to be future ready. So we will be getting stakeholders and would like a member from the board as well to participate in that. Just wanted to quickly mention our organizational chart, is updated in your packet. You can see we tried to consolidate things and really align it to our strategic plan and vision. So you'll see that the program names have changed slightly. Crystal's still getting used to hers is a mouthful, but we have consolidated them into 4 areas: school and educator effectiveness, opportunities and innovative learning. That's Crystal's academic outcomes and instruction and academic outcomes and instruction and safety and student supports. Because those are like really the critical areas that we're wanting to focus on. I also want to announce that we're going to be hiring an assistant special education director. We know that we need to staff up in that area and provide I want OPI to be able to provide a high level of expertise. And I know that we've had a void there in the past for a bit. I want to thank Patrick Cates. He's been incredible in taking on all that he can in that area. He's stepping in as the interim director right now. We're very thankful for his work in supporting that team. But we do know that it's an area that everyone in the field is feeling a big impact on, and we want to make sure we have the resources to be responsive to you all. So we'll be posting that position. We also have a school safety and student wellness position. It might already be posted. I'm not sure, but they're going to be focusing on working with schools to support them on their school safety plans, working very closely with the U of M Safe School Center that we contract with, and working on suicide prevention and mental health awareness. So we're excited about that. I will move quickly here through the next couple. I was really excited to hear about your local beef. We are working with producer partnerships to make sure that we're spreading the word and getting beef into local beef into all of our schools across the state of Montana. As well as we were able to save the Montana Marinara program. We did lose one federal grant. Well, we did in years past, we've gotten a federal grant that allowed us to start the Montana Marinara work. And we did get partnerships with the Department of Ag and the Department of Commerce to save Montana Marinara. So in Bozeman, they had Montana Marinara with their local beef and Montana Pasta Company. So they had a completely local meal, which I think is pretty amazing. We want high quality local ingredients, with, good nutrients for our students. So we're excited about that. I know that Tyler, who will be sitting in for me as I step out to some different things throughout the next couple of days, our assistant deputy superintendent, she's been working closely with the college board to hear more about their offerings. They have a course an AP course in cybersecurity and an AP business course. So we just wanted to mention those might be good opportunities. And we've been meeting with all of the interim committees. So we've been up at the Capitol quite a bit. The staff has done a great job of presenting all of our reports to them. And next week we have the School Funding Commission. This is really important. I think y'all should be keeping an eye on it. We really need to make sure that we get some change and make sure that our school funding formula is transparent and less complex. We should be able to explain it to our school board, to our families, and ourselves. And with the clerks, you have to almost be a rocket scientist to be a school clerk right now. And I think we all feel that in the field too. It's very challenging. So we want to make sure that funding formula is student-centered, of course. So keep an eye on that. On the legislative front, we're just working very hard to implement all of the legislation that has come through. We're going to be working with clerks and administrators as well as counties soon. There are a lot of bills that will have major impacts on mills, that we're going to have to do a lot of work on. Some of the biggest changes that we've seen in a long time. And so we had a meeting with the budget office at the with the governor, and a whole bunch of us, a bunch of us got together left just this week to talk about how we're going to make all of this happen. We opened the Indian Education for All feedback portal, requested by Senate Bill 181. The window for school districts to apply for AEDs is open until October 15th. So if you haven't applied for your AED, make sure you get that. Those funds, make sure you get that taken care of. Because after that window closes, it will just be first come, first serve for the remaining funds. We've been partnering with all of our education partners to provide guidance. So a few things have come up with homeless students, for example, and how the language conflicts with open enrollment. So we're going to be sending out a communication to all of you soon. But something that's really important to me that I was talking to our chairman about here last night is that we want to make sure that we're sending solid messaging to the field, and that you're not going to hear one thing from the OPI and one thing from MTSBA and, that kind of a thing. So we've been working with them. So we called Lance, we worked with our legal team, and we called Lance Melton with MTSBA. We're going to talk to Dr. Watson, Chairman Tharp, and others and go over the guidance, make sure we're all on the same page before we send that out to the field in our weekly newsletter. So that will be coming soon, some important information on that. As you know, we had a ruling in federal court that judgment overrules the statutory regulations. So we do need to provide FAPE for students until they're 22 in Montana. And there is really good guidance out on there. Mandy and Aislinn, our legal folks, have been working very hard on this, and there are funds. We did make sure that you were going to have funding available for this if you had any students that took you up on that offer. So keep an eye out for that. We want to meet with the licensure committee of the board to talk about the Parapathways project and some potential work with paras coming up and opportunities in that area. I know that's, you know, some things have gone forward, and then been presented to the board. We want to make sure that you're involved in these conversations at an early start. So we want to have those conversations with you guys as soon as possible. And on that note, I will turn it over to Patrick Cates for our safety and student supports update.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Evelyn. Thanks for the kind words earlier as well. Good morning, Chairman Tharp, members of the board. Thanks for having me today. My name is Patrick Cates, Patrickcates.
The legislature.
Yes, sorry. I am as Superintendent Henlin mentioned, the senior manager for safety and student support services, overseeing special education, which I'm here to talk about today, and a few others that Superintendent Henlin hit on as well, our coordinated school health unit, and our school nutrition unit. So I was excited to hear all those things again today. But today we're focused on our students with disabilities and sort of the state of special education in Montana. So I won't read all directly from the report, but we'll kind of walk through a few important pieces here that I want to make sure we note. Starting on page 2, goes over kind of our overview of Montana special education population, and wanted to point out some numbers in terms of the total population. You'll see there we had a slight increase in our students with disabilities population, while we had a decrease in our overall total enrollment for the state. This is the second year in a row that's happened. And then this is the third year in a row we've seen our special education third year that I've been doing this report anyway, that we've seen our special education population percentage increase. A year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we were at about 13.5%. Now we're at that national average of 15%. And 2 years prior to this report, there was a massive increase that year of 12% from the previous year, which was the reporting year after COVID. And so there was a whole lot of qualifications for special education that came in as we returned to school from COVID. But just a trend that I wanted to make everybody aware of, that continual increase in our special education population, yet our overall population is decreasing at that same time. Which leads us to the enrollment pieces as well. You can see the breakdown there in the graph. Our demographics, when you take a look at our race and ethnicity broken out by how does it compare between our special education population and our total population, the last 3 years it's been fairly similar, except for our Native American students. And that has been about a 3% difference each year. The numbers have gone up and down a little bit, but it's been about 3% more in special education than what's represented in the total population. And that's been fairly consistent, at least the past 3 years. Continue down the disability categories. One of the things I always make sure to point out, if you've heard me before, you've heard this already, but when you look at the graphs comparing the United States disability categories to Montana, the one thing you'll notice where the big discrepancy is in the multiple disabilities category. Otherwise, the top ones are the same: learning disability, speech language impairment, other health impairment, and autism. We follow kind of that same order, except for multiple disabilities. At the national level, it's very small. Montana, it's quite high. The reason for that is we do things, as we always do, slightly different here in Montana. We have multiple disabilities. The way Montana works is we identify every disability a student has on their IEP. In other states, that would get lumped into a multiple disabilities label the student would receive. Montana, we like to make sure that each one of those disabilities is recognized so that each one of those disabilities is taken into account for that student's plan. So that's the main difference you'll notice there. In the past, I pointed out in the chart that shows the large disability count by category with all the percentages. One thing to note there is the developmental delay category has started to plateau these last 10 years, which is what we expected. That category was increased from age 6 to age 8 back in 2018. So that's why years past, you saw large increases in that category. But these past 3 years, that's leveled out there. So that is what we expected. That's good to see. That's it. Going down, wanted to make sure, we always have our special education cooperatives in there. I worked in our rural schools as a teacher and as a principal, and the rural schools wouldn't be able to operate without our cooperatives. Vital service for providing special education to our students in Montana. As you can see, there are about 80% of our districts are provided special education services through those cooperatives. So it's a big push across Montana. Special education achievement, the graduation numbers, again, slightly higher than average for our students with disabilities. Just a slight bit higher than the national average. Last year, we were, past couple of years have been slightly higher as well. Last year, we were about 1% higher than we are now. It was 76.13%, I think, last year, somewhere in there. So a slight drop, but still above that national average. When you look at the proficiency rates, this will be the same information that you saw last year with our change in moving to MAST. We don't obviously have the proficiency rates from this past year, but we're excited for what that looks like for our students with disabilities and really eager to see how that turns out this next year. With that, we'll kind of jump down to the funding piece. Superintendent Edlin mentioned we were level funded. So as you can see, our special education funding overall for IDA funds from last year to this year is within $100,000 of what it was last year. Out of that 45 million, about 40 million of it goes out to the schools for the allotments. The rest is kept at the state for running the administration of the state office, special education part, and a lot of the programs we have going, like as has been mentioned, the Para Pathways project. Some other things, leader services, we're upgrading our monitoring system to be able to, one, reduce data entry for schools, should be less data entry that they have to do, and provide us more usable data to work with the schools on in the monitoring piece. So we're excited about that. And as always, the entire preschool award, the 1.3 billion, we always flow all of that out to districts. We don't keep any of that at the agency. See the appendices, I just wanted to point out as well, the superintendent mentioned the graduation settlement. So in those appendices, appendix A, you'll see the guidance and everything that was sent out to the school districts regarding that announcement. And then appendix B is a presentation that the superintendent mentioned, Mandy Gibbs, our special education attorney. Presentation that she gave twice now to directors. We scheduled meetings with the special education directors to get that information out there, make sure they have heard what's going on, and we will be continuing, obviously, throughout the year as we transition from getting that notification out to now looking at how do we serve those students. So we're looking to actually build a work group of people around the state to help us look at what are those areas that we need to make sure we're addressing for schools. As we make that transition and schools start to understand where their responsibilities are headed with that and how to serve those students best. The last piece, this is not in the report, but we did just get this letter yesterday sent to the superintendent. If you remember our differentiated monitoring audit that we've had from OSEP, that started 2 years ago. That was the first time I presented to this group. We started in June of 2023 with the audit, got the letter last May from them, have made all of our corrections. We just got the closeout letter from OSEP yesterday saying Montana's good, we're up to snuff on everything, and the audit is over. So very happy about that, and good way to end my talking. So any questions I can answer from Thank you.
Who's running this? I have a question.
Good.
Thank you, Patrick. I have two areas of questions. First of all, do you know whether the school for the deaf and blind is in your special ed child counts?
It is.
It is, okay. And I guess I was a little surprised since at the school for the deaf and blind, they have a much higher percentage of students who are deaf than students who are visually impaired. And yet statewide, the deaf is a smaller percentage than
Higher, yeah.
visual impairment, so that's striking as interesting. And then, do you have now any sense, or are you working on developing a sense of how big this population is of students who haven't graduated, special ed students who haven't graduated, received a diploma, and who are not yet 22? Like, how big is that population?
Yes, so the settlement goes back just for this past year, and so when we look at those that would have graduated in 2024, or 25, sorry. It's roughly 50 students from what we can gather. Again, the districts will be investigating on their own, or it's what they've been doing, going through making sure they identify those kids through their process. But from our best estimate, it was around 50 students for this past year.
And what does that mean for funding, like federal funding, state funding? State funding, is that allowable to be used for students who are older than 19?
Yes, so we have several districts that have already been serving students of this age for quite a while. I know my last district was Belgrade. I know we had a few students that we were serving in that 18 to 21 age range. Billings has been doing it for a while, Great Falls as well. I'm sure there's others that I'm missing, but those are just some examples. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Right.
If I may add, yeah, I just want to mention a couple of things because we have gotten a lot of questions on the funding. So the legislature had changed it to 21, up to 21 schools could get funding, but we were still out of compliance because the federal law is 22. And so that's, so all of the states that were not, meeting that 22 requirement had these lawsuits come in. And our settlement only going back 1 year was a good thing. Some states had to go back farther than that, which can create more challenges for school districts, especially we were worried about our rural school district having the capacity or resources. It doesn't mean necessarily going back to the high school full time. It could be voc rehab. It could be, FAPE in whatever way that means on their transition plan that supports that student and that family through that IEP meeting. So that's something we're, sharing. They have great guidance and information on for schools. But when we looked at that and got those numbers, we worked with, of course, Paul Taylor and others, and we could identify around 50 students that could potentially qualify. So we took that number, their A and B, because of the timing, it was too late for schools to have the A and B, or even to put in for the, we didn't want to change their adopted budgets, or for them to try to have to try to do the local tuition permissive levy. So we added that in, and we have an account set aside from the governor's office budget line. So we have a budget line for this, based on those calculations of what the cost potential could be for those 50 students. So there is funding set aside. There's been some concern of like, it wasn't in the OPI budget. Are you sure? Yes, understanding that settling would be better than what it would cost to continue this. We were able to work with the governor's budget office to set aside the funds necessary to make sure we adequately can provide resources to those schools if they need to support these students.
Thank you.
I appreciate that funding mechanism as well, because especially in our really small districts, even though you have the ability for that permissive levy for the tuition, and you don't mention any names, everybody knows in the little tiny school exactly which child, and okay, so everybody's taxes went up because of this one kid, and there's a lot of pressure on local boards. I was at a board meeting a couple of weeks ago where this was discussed, and they were very hesitant to permissibly levy that amount, and they would rather pay for it out of their flex fund rather than put it out on a tax statement and have people question, and then because even though it's private information, everybody knows in the small town which student that is. So that could be very stigmatizing and traumatizing for that child and family.
It is challenging. I see,
And yeah, Board Member Rasmussen had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Patrick, I just want to thank you for acknowledging the great work that cooperatives do. I'm a former past president of the Rose Valley Cooperative and have been a part of Prairie View in my tenure. And I just want to thank you for acknowledging their great work. Small schools couldn't exist without their help.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Rasmussen, absolutely. All the districts I worked in up until my last one, we relied on those cooperatives and it's absolutely vital to providing that education.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Patrick. And once again, just if anybody needs any special education assistance, if, Patrick is going to be the main point of contact unless you already have a good relationship with your regional contact, he'll make sure you do. And we are hoping to bring on another expert that can assist and work on making sure we have really good messaging and support for all of you working with special education. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. And if Mr. Chairman,
This is a little bit unique, but I noticed in the pages about funding that Yellowstone Academy and also Department of Corrections receive funds for special education students in their care. Are there students who are in those systems up to age 18 who then maybe need to be serviced by their home district between age 18 and 22? I'm just curious about that because the schools would maybe have lost contact with those kids, don't have, maybe that kid has not been in their district for a while. They were either incarcerated potentially in Pine Hills or another facility or Yellowstone Academy. And then how does that interplay with the lawsuit outcome?
students participating in those facilities or in the WIOA program are offered FAPE as well. So
Right.
up to 22.
Right, so they can stay in those places until age 22, or the home district would have to offer the services from age 18 to 22.
I don't know what the age limits are on those
Yeah,
programs. I know in WIOA, they do have students in that age range and they will need to meet these same requirements. And the workforce program through the Department of Labor.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand the interplay, because for example, in my district, we have a student that is at a group home. Where he is reserving, he's living and also receiving school. So, we pay tuition to that group home, and I'm just curious, like, if services end for those institutions at age 18, then is the student coming back to their home district? Or are those settings extending their services past 18? Because a lot of different settings like that, their services typically end at 18.
That's a great question. So I think that would be important for the IEP team to meet on and maybe coordinate with those programs to have that transition plan for them for their next few years, just like we do with a senior or someone that may be exiting high school, or you might have the next few years looking different. That's where that transition plan comes into play and is really important for those students at around that age to make sure that they have faith.
Superintendent,
Yes, please.
Yes, the district of residence is still ultimately responsible for that student's education. So if the facility does not, I do want to point out that Yellowstone Academy is different than Yellowstone Boys and Girls Ranch. So the academy in there is only the K-8 school. That's the public school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the Pine Hills High School, for example.
Right.
It is my understanding that kids are not incarcerated, they're past 18, but perhaps they are, maybe I need to be educated. So I guess I'm asking, like, what happens to those students who are SPED, who are receiving services in an institution like that? Then if the home district is ultimately responsible, how do they know kind of about those kids, I guess? Who is communicating that information? Like, home district, you must provide this letter offering services to this student.
Yeah, there should be communication between the institution and the home district.
There should be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know our team has been helping the special education directors identify those students to reach out to.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Patrick. Mr. Chairman, if I can just invite Deputy Berenger up for just a quick rundown of some exciting work he's been doing to close us out.
Chairman Tharp? Yeah. We've been, I've been at the job about 2.5 months, but my second week there, Superintendent Headland said, one of the things we're gonna do is we're gonna have a presence at the mass meetings. And so we have made, Tyler has helped schedule, we have made a concerted effort to be at every mass meeting, working with, Rob Watson, who's the director of SAN. And it's been very interesting going out and hearing what's going on out there. I think, Tyler, you were in Missoula. I was in Glasgow last week with Chairman Tharp, and in Miles City and Lewistown this week. So it's been good to listen to the school leaders and some of the co-op members that are, what's going on out in their areas. And one of the things we're really learning is that, you know, rural, way out east, they have some of the same problems as they do in north central Montana, but each district has their own unique issues. So, thanks to Superintendent Hedlund, we've been going out and just listening in on what they're doing and sharing what we've got going at OPI. Tyler's got the review or the summary. If you guys want a copy of that, we can send it to you of what we shared with all those leaders.
Thank you. Thank you for all your windshield time.
Lots of big bugs out in eastern Montana.
And we're very, very excited and honored to have Deputy Berenger and his background in Montana as well as Wyoming and experience and knowledge that he brings to the table. So thank you to our team and of course our team from OPI you'll be hearing from over the next couple of days. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions or anything else for Superintendent Hedlund? Hey, well, before we move on to item number 4, I want to make sure we get an opportunity to get some of that great company coffee and take a quick break. So let's take a 12-minute break and we will reconvene at 10:15 with Dr. Lane. Standing recess.
Or, staff.
I know.
Yeah. So I let it.
Bring it back to order. For the record online, this is a meeting of Montana Board of Public Education. We are in Dillon. It is Thursday, September 11th, 2025. We are now on item number 4, page 57 on your agenda, and we'll now go to Commissioner Higher Education Report, Dr. McLean.
Thanks so much, Chair Tharp, members of the board. Very good to see all of you this morning and to be here in Dillon with each of you and our colleagues from this community who seem to have left us, at least those from the district. But I do want to express my deep appreciation for having us here and for the great presentations that they delivered in welcome to us earlier this morning. I'd also like to signal hello to my post-secondary counterparts in the audience from University of Montana and University of Montana Western. Always good to be among those folks. Our academic year is underway at all of our MUS campuses right now. And next week, our Board of Regents will be convening at Montana Tech in Butte for their fall regent meeting, where we are eagerly anticipating updates on enrollment numbers. And so we're looking forward to seeing our counterparts from across the MUS come together and have good conversations, just like the ones you folks are having here today. I would also be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Mr. Plutt here. I tell you what, I don't think that there's anybody who comes to town that he doesn't know about, and anything happening in town or in Beaverhead County that he doesn't know about. And he has long been a great contributor to the great things that happen here in Dillon and in Beaverhead County. And he's just been a longtime friend and a familiar face for me. And so it's very good to see you. And I look forward to visiting with you sometime throughout the day. It's very good to see you. Give my best to your family. Mr. Chair and members of the board, I just have a few items that I'd like to present to each of you this morning. But before I do, I'd like to take a moment to signal our appreciation for the work already done and the partnerships already continuing to grow under the leadership of the new deputy, Mr. Craig Behringer, who was at the podium just a few moments ago. One of the things that struck me was that he and Tyler have made significant inroads already into eastern Montana and up along the High Line. And as he was presenting, I was thinking about my comments regarding your strategic plan and the Rural Talent Lab grant that we were competing for. I will let this board know that we were one of 5 states in the entire country that were awarded that Rural Talent Lab grant. And so we will work with folks out of Boone, North Carolina, and ARC, which is the Alliance for Research on Regional Colleges, to develop rural talent pipelines. And so we'll start our work officially with them on October 27th, when we'll travel to Boone. We'll be there for the next couple of days with a contingency from Montana, where we'll meet with the other awardees from across the country. And what we know from this initial place where we stand on that award is that this next year is going to be spent in listening sessions with our rural stakeholders. And so we're going to focus on the eastern part of the state. We're going to focus on the High Line. And so we're going to retrace a lot of the steps that Craig and Tyler have already traced. And we really look forward to having conversations, serious listening sessions, doing some polling around what it is that these rural communities need. Additionally, one of the other areas of focus for this first year of that Rural Talent Lab work is going to be the Workforce Pell. We think that that's going to open some significant doors as we look to our programs that last anywhere from 8 to 15 weeks. And we are going to be ready as a state, we know, on July 1st when that will open. And so we're going to be spending some time on that Rural Talent Development Lab project, just honing in on what we need to do to be ready come July 1 of next year, because we think that that's going to create some easy pathways for folks all across the state to get the training they need to enter the jobs that they're needed to fill in their communities across the state. And so I wanted to start with that. The second thing I wanted to visit with you about is something that you hear from me this time every single year, and that is our Future at Work Summit. Our Future at Work Summit is scheduled October 2nd and 3rd at Flathead Valley Community College. Registration, the cost to attend is entirely free. Our folks from the ARC and from Boone, North Carolina and Appalachian States, they are going to be one of our keynotes, talking about making sure that we don't overlook any facet of rural. And we think that that's going to be a critical keynote for us as we do this Future at Work, as we grow dual enrollment, as we enter our second phase of work with the Education Design Labs. And so that's October 2nd and 3rd, NUS.edu. There's a link there, free registration, and we hope to see some of you. I think we'll have at least one of your board members there as per some previous conversations. If you have any questions about that, please do let me know. Additionally, since the last time that I saw you, we have made our most recent round of awards. We awarded 5 Future at Work grantees. And again, these are awards that are designed to prepare high school students with workforce credentials before they leave high school. Our 5 awardees are Miles Community College, Gallatin College, the University of Montana Western, right here in this room as well, Missoula College, and Highlands College. And the areas of funding are CDL, CNA, early childhood education. Very excited about that one. That's a true rural dual enrollment pathway. And then, of course, cybersecurity and CNA. So some good things happening on that Future at Work front. The next thing I just would like to spend a couple of minutes on is the Grow Your Own Awards. In the 21 legislative session, the legislature funded Grow Your Own, a rural educator talent development effort for the very first time. And we rolled that out very successfully. In the 23 session, the bill was not discussed, and as such, the program was not funded. In this last session, it was revisited. It was brought forth by Representative Thetis Crow, and it passed. And so we had our RFP ready to go so that on July 1, campuses across the state could issue proposals for how they would deliver their Grow Your Own projects in their communities. And we were able to, with the $500,000 that was made available to us over the biennium, award 2 grants that were ready to start their cohorts immediately this fall. And that was a critical piece of what the lawmakers wanted, is making sure that we had programs ready to start to deliver cohorts. And we had 2 very competitive grants that emerged as our top grantees. One was from Montana State University, and they partnered with Blackfeet Community College. The lead there is Dr. Lauren Davis, and through that project, they'll deliver a community-centered teacher prep initiative that will prepare educators in Browning, Glendive, and along the High Line by expanding course modalities and expanding competency-based education work. And we think that that fits not only with what lawmakers wanted, but also with the apprenticeship grant that DLI was just awarded. It definitely fit the ask for developing a middle skill sub-baccalaureate credential that we asked for at the university system, and all of the other pieces there that we think are so important as per the statute. And they start this fall with a cohort of 9. The next grantee was the University of Montana Western. And what they are going to do with their model is they are going to expand the core school that all of you have been privy to for quite some time now, and you got to tour, and I think probably some of you have had more than one visit to it. They're going to take that show on the road and expand that core school to the Lewistown Public Schools and to their charter school, the Central Montana Academy. And they have a cohort this fall of 12, and I think we'll have a total cohort from them, our total group of completers of 23 by the time they're all done and they roll out their cohort next year at the Central Montana Academy. We're really excited about this. This, just enables us with the apprenticeship project, with the 2+2s, with the educator residency program, everything that's happening across the Montana University system, and quite frankly, the educator prep landscape across the state, including the revisions to educator licensure standards, including education as a CTE a number of years ago. It just adds to our ability to check off those boxes to make sure that we have truly left no stone unturned when it comes to us as educators creating pathways for future educators who would teach our children. And so just a very exciting initiative. We're thankful to the legislature, thankful to Representative Thetis Crow, and thankful to the governor for signing it. And so we look forward to working with our 2 grantees, a very competitive process. Again, so much of it came down to how folks could ensure the ability to deliver on those cohorts as early as this fall. And that's tough when you get an RFP at the 1st of July. And so I just want to congratulate our 2 grantees, thank all of our folks for making application, because they were really quite well done. The next thing I'd like to point to is our future ready efforts with the Office of Public Instruction. We are so excited about this growing partnership with the OPI. And when Mr. Behringer got up, I was thinking, I think he's been to our office already 3 times in his very short tenure at the Office of Public Instruction. We are emailing, on the phone, or on conference calls repeatedly during every business week, business hours, and not, I think, doing the important work of P20 education all across the state. And so we could not be more thrilled and excited about this partnership. We cannot wait to get the invite to the table to work with them on these future ready indicators. I look at the STARS Act, and in and of itself, the whole bill is exciting. We're very pleased to see the investment in K-12 educators and their salaries. We are equally pleased to see the part of the act that starts on page 31 of that legislation that will truly incentivize this future ready investment in our K-12 students. And we think there are true opportunities, not only for our students, not only for our K-12 schools, but for us in the Montana University system. And this partnership, this strong collaboration around Future Ready is already underway. And so we're going to be working with the superintendent, rolling up our sleeves, coming to the table, and shaking every tree we can just to make sure that we're ready come December 1, and our schools have the supports they need, including toolkits, etc., to meet the needs of students where they're at. And so we look very, very forward to that. And I mentioned the December 1 date just because that's what's mentioned in the statute, when all of these pieces and parts have to be put out there for public awareness. And then the last thing that I just like to point to is our arc of events for college access and success across the university system. And let you know that on September 22nd, college application weeks begin across the state. And that is not only the Montana University system, but our 7 tribal colleges and our private campuses across the state. As you know, Apply Montana is free for Montana residents, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But we partner with all of our institutions across the state to make sure that applications are free during this 2-week time period. And so we hope that you will join us in making sure that your counselors, your parents, your students, everybody that you know is aware of these 2 weeks, because this access point is really critical. Additionally, right after that, we enter into FAFSA completion. And we really want to make sure that our students at the high school level, their parents, their community members, know the value of completing that free form so that they can access any and all federal funds that are available to them, and they and their communities and we as a state don't leave any of those federal dollars on the table, because we know that there are opportunities for them at access to those funds, and thus access to post-secondary credentials that will support them better as they enter into the workforce. And along that front with the arc of events, one of the things that is going out as a result of the strong partnership between the superintendent and the commissioner is a letter to all high school seniors, encouraging them to participate in college application week, go to Apply Montana, and in general, consider what their post-secondary options might look like. And that is something that is just growing a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of excitement at our office. We think that intentional connection with those high school students cannot be substituted. And we think that it will yield great results for us. And then finally, on that front, the ACT, as you as a board know, is now held by the Office of Public Instruction. That contract is owned there. And we have worked very successfully with the team at the Office of Public Instruction to develop a Montana University System Score Report Code 8302 that we're encouraging our high school juniors to go in and include to have their scores sent to all 16 campuses in the Montana University System. Now, right now, students can mark for their scores to go to 4 separate campuses. What we've done is work with ACT, worked with OPI, and by marking 8302, they can multiply that and have their score sent to 19 separate campuses if they mark 8302. Because they'll go to us and then they'll go to all 16 of our campuses, then plus 3 more. And so we think that's just a great opportunity for high school students. As per a communication I just had here that we're working on with the OPI, I think it's $19 if they had to pay for this themselves to have their scores sent to each individual campus. So, you know, do the math. There's some real opportunities for our high school students to save some money, but none of that would happen without the strong partnership between the 2 agencies and truly too, with you folks here at the board table. And so with that, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I conclude my report and I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you folks might have.
Thank you. I really like that idea. That's cool. Be able to send it to everybody all at once rather than individually. Any questions for Dr. McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dr. McLean. Do you have a visual or an infographic or something that would show us all these many ways of growing your own and the teacher residency? I guess I would like sort of a summary document, and I don't know whether anybody has these pieces that including the apprenticeships that all support the increasing our pool of educators available to us.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, one of the things that I have created for our Board of Regents is a couple of charts that show investments made and being by the legislature or by the federal government and being delivered on our campuses or through any of the campuses who are members of the Council of Deans of Education. And then side by side next to that, what I have is a chart that shows all of these other peripheral efforts that might not necessarily be being led at the campus level, but things like taking a look at the licensure standards, things like taking a look at starting pay for educators, recognition of CTE as a pathway. I have a quality educator loan forgiveness, just really demonstrating with checks in the boxes, here's what the Montana educator recruitment and retention landscape
Well,
looks
I'm
like.
so glad I asked. So
Yeah.
would you share that with the Board of Public Ed?
I certainly can do that. And here's what I will tell you is that we started doing a deep dive into this work at the request of Highline superintendents in May of 2016. The MUS really started tackling this and we started checking off some boxes, and most of these boxes were not checked. And when the DLI recently got its apprenticeship grant, we got super excited because that was one that was becoming increasingly more and more difficult to fill because we worked with them on several other applications that weren't successful. And so now they got it, and now as a state, we can check that box. And so what you're gonna see here is that if you compare this and put it up against most other states across the country, is we have anything and everything, I think, that other states are putting up right now. You put our 2+2s, our Masters of Arts in Education. You have our residency program and so much more. We have the boxes checked in Montana, and that didn't come easy. It came, I think, through a lot of intentional dedication and serious conversations by this board, by superintendents, by Julie Mergel, who's sitting out there, and her counterparts at the Office of Public Instruction over the years. And I think it's a pretty good place to be. We've got a long way to go to meet the needs of all of our K-12 schools across the state, but we're in a far better place than we were a number of years ago as far as what we can offer as a state. Board Member Quinlan, and I think that's pretty exciting.
Great. So for those of us sitting at 60,000 feet, something like that, I think would be very.
Any other questions? Yeah, Reverend Schmidt.
I have a comment. Congratulations on your rural, what'd you call it, rural talent development class. That's very exciting. And I am happy to hear that. And I hope that now is a part of your list and boxes checked off that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Mr. Chair, Board Member Schmidt, thank you so very, very much. We are incredibly excited about it. It was officially announced at the SHIO conference, the second week of August. And what that meant, to the point made by Board Member Quinlan just a few minutes ago, is that then we had to take our carefully crafted workforce initiatives page that took us several years of SDA and saying, hey, we need this diagram to show us everything that's happening in the Montana University system. Now we get this rural talent development lab, and now we got to fit that into that new graphic. It's a good place to be, and I think that we're going to get to add another new place, a new placeholder for something else here in the next couple of weeks. I'll bring that to you in November.
Excellent.
Little teaser there for you.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Dr. McLean, really appreciate that. Moving on to item number 5, our student representative report, and now we'll hear from Lydia Comstock.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I've not got too much for you, but I'll start off with some updates from within the schools. You guys talked a lot about the phone policies, and I thought it would be nice to offer a student perspective. For reference, in the Great Falls Public School District, they have phone pockets that are used to take attendance. Therefore, you have to yield your phone in order to be part of the class, which is interesting. And Kalispell and their schools are just requiring phones to be off. So it kind of varies across the state, but all of the student feedback that I have collected so far has been overwhelmingly positive, which surprises me because I am aware of how much my peers depend on their phones and even sometimes how much I depend on my phone. But I think it's really nice to have a separation from the anxiety and what your phone can cause and all the communication that you feel responsible for while you're actively participating in class. And so I think that the phone regulation that's in place is doing pretty well thus far. And as far as the teacher perspective and what I've gathered from my classroom teachers is that this is one of the best school year start-offs they've had since phones were present in schools. And so I think that's really helpful and really great. And I think the students really appreciate that. And another update from within the schools, the Montana World Affairs Council brought Dr. Anel Shaleen to the Hage Lodgepole High School to talk to them all about US foreign policy and whatnot. And although it's kind of a random addition to the report, I just think it's really nice, especially in rural environments, for them to have an introduction to what's going on in the world and an opportunity to really engage with that. And I'll probably bring up the World Affairs Council again when they invite the public schools to their World Quest event, but I just thought it was really important to note and acknowledge. And then my last update from within the schools is just acknowledging the Suicide Awareness Week, which is going from September 7th until September 13th. And it's being honored by almost every school in the state. A lot of local key clubs are really putting in a lot of dedication to the cause. And I just want to thank the board and the board members who are so positive of advocating for mental health within the schools, because it means a lot to the student population and to the student body that you guys care deeply about this. And aside from within the schools, I have some updates from the Montana Association of Student Councils. We have a new school officially joining the association. Sheridan is going to be part of this. We are inviting them to the state conference, and we're really excited to have them out there. We're also doing some increasing middle school engagement. We're trying to bring them to our state conference. We're trying to really funnel them into the high school program to open up some opportunities for them. And that's exciting. Our official state conference is set for November 16th through 18th, which all of you are invited to if you're interested to see how leadership is going throughout the state. We have some keynote speakers, Aaron Pompa and Evan Wellesley. And they're really going to focus on helping students build the leadership skills that they need, but also understanding how to transfer leadership skills between different places. A lot of students are in a workplace or on a team, or they're in an unexpected situation, and knowing how to transfer these skills is really important for all of them. So that's kind of where we're focusing leadership for this year in the schools. And my last update is just about NASB. I recently went to the NASB New Member Institute virtual conference very recently. It was on Tuesday, but I got a lot of information that I thought was valuable. It helped me connect with representatives from across the country who are doing the same thing that I'm doing, and I thought that was really helpful. We had a great keynote and about an hour of federal policy breakdown, and so that was really valuable for all of us. And then we had some opportunities to find mentors and connections that are in the college system or still as an active representative, and so that was helpful. And we got a briefing on strategic planning, which has been really helpful for me to understand in this meeting. And a few things that the New Member Institute has introduced me to are the round table discussions that NASB allows student representatives to be part of. So I can join a virtual conference and I can meet with student representatives from across the country, and they can bring up an issue or something that they're seeing on their board and ask how other states are dealing with that and how other student representatives feel about that. And it allows us to kind of circulate information and give an accurate student perspective to our board after kind of wiping our own perspective. So I think that that's really great. And then that also introduced me to some opportunities to like write for student voices columns with NASB and to really amplify the voices of Montana students out there. When we look at the just NASB system and all that's going on with boards of public education across the country. So that was really exciting, and that's all I have for you. This very brief start to the school year.
Where is your state conference at?
Our state conference is in Great Falls this year.
Yes.
So what's the connection with what'd you call it, the World
Affairs Council?
World Affairs Council with the Hayes Lodgepole? How'd that happen?
I'm not exactly sure how they found that specific school. I think that they were probably just searching for like a rural opportunity and a school administration that was really excited to have someone from far away bring a wealth of knowledge to their school. And I'm not sure if they're going to be circulating that throughout other rural schools, but I hope so. And I can try to communicate with them about that and see what's going on.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Lydia. Very nice report. What are the tools that you're using to communicate with students around the state and other student council representatives?
Thus far, most of my communication comes through the executive committee of MASC. We meet every Sunday via Zoom, and so there's a start to our meetings, and then there's a briefing, and then there's an opportunity for me to ask whatever questions I need of the student representatives from across the state. And I think there's about 10 people and then some adult representatives that serve on the board as well. So it's a pretty widespread group from all the different rural corners of Montana. So that's how I get most of my information.
Thanks.
Other questions for Lydia?
I just had a quick comment. It was great to hear that you participated in the NASB, and I didn't know that they had opportunities for students as well. So that's exciting and probably interesting, like you said, to learn about strategic planning that we're all discussing. So that's amazing. Thank you for taking the time to do that.
Yeah, I'm super excited to do the NASB things.
Yes.
Chair, members of the board, thank you. That was a great report, and I zeroed in early on into your focus on suicide prevention. Such a serious and important conversation. And one of the things that I got to thinking about as you were talking about your focus there was that the Department of Health and Human Services received an appropriation to work with the university system to train folks in short-term credentials, specifically in developmental disabilities and behavioral health. And as we have these conversations, and as you're articulating the importance of awareness of suicide prevention, I think it would be equally important for us to continue to elevate the importance of folks going into those fields. I know specifically the MUS is going to be working with the DPHHS. I'm getting an MOU, getting those funds then out to campuses to develop dual enrollment pathways that high school students can start on, so that they can earn micro credentials, so that they can step into behavioral health fields in the communities where they live, and then also traditional pathways for non-traditional learners for folks where they live in those two areas, behavioral health and developmental disabilities. And I think that as we have these conversations and as we elevate the attention to suicide prevention, I think it's so very important. And I think it's equally important that we in Montana continue to elevate the conversation around making sure that we have an adequate workforce around those behavioral health needs that exist all across our very rural state. And so you want to bring that back to your group, I'd be happy to answer any questions that they might have. We hope to have those pathways developed by fall of 2026. So folks can enroll in them and hopefully get in and get out in an 8 to 15 week time span and have a credential, so that when they leave high school, perhaps they can be boots on the ground, playing an active role in helping their fellow Montanans navigate some of the challenges that they might be facing. So thanks for your focus, your attention to that. And I look forward to connecting, if we can, on being partners in some of that important advocacy around developing workforce.
Other questions or comments for Libby? No, for the record, it was the Savage Student Council reached out to me last week and asked me to present at their school. And so on Monday, I presented to students 7 through 12 as far as what resources available in the county. We talked about the Montana CARES app and promoted that, partnered with the county health department behavioral specialists to come in. And then I also talked to the UPR for youth to all of the students in 7 through 12. And that was that. And that, again, that request came to me from the student council. So I brought student council. All right. Let's move on to our next item on the agenda, and item number 6, I'll hand things over to our MSD liaison, board member Schmidt.
Thank you. There's Paul. So, lots has been happening at MSDB. Paul, would you like to give us an update on what's happening?
Sure, board member Schmidt and members of the Board of Public Ed, I would. And I also have with me Miranda Briggs online with me today. She is our outreach director and would like to spend some time with the entire board on where we're at with our outreach program. But before we do that, it's been a beginning of the year that's been fast and furious, but it's been good, I feel, so far, and hope it can go that way. We only have one action item for you this time. I'll cover it now and then we'll do the action later like usual, but it's just a personnel action report. And I shouldn't say this because every time I do say it, it seems like the list grows big, but our list is small this time. So we're excited to have hires on our list here with 4 hires, 1 outreach consultant, 2 paraprofessionals and 1 sub-nurse, and only 3 resignations with 1 consultant, 1 para, and 1 residential advisor. So we are fully staffed paraprofessional wise. We are almost fully staffed now with LPN. We are holding open a school psych position and some consulting positions and teacher positions until we see what our needs are. Once we get school going, we were able to start school with the people we have on staff. If we do receive some of the students that we're hearing about, we'll definitely be needing to talk to Nancy Hall and OBPP for some temporary paraprofessional work. We're probably maxed out at the paraprofessional spot. And so we would probably need some help, but we'll have you approve that. We do have in November for you to consider an LPN. So I actually think all of our LPN positions will be filled before the next meeting, which is exciting because that hasn't happened since pre-COVID here. It seems like someone's always been rotating out. And the other good thing is we actually have 2 sub-nurses that are wanting to get on possibly with us full time once they finish with their contracts at another agency, which would be later this year. So feel really good about that. Feel good about where we're sitting staff wise. Paraprofessionals, like I said, is probably my concern, and that's if we get more students. But overall, personnel, I think we're starting off in a good spot with where we're at and where we need to go and meet the needs of our students. So with that, I'm just going to kind of go through a little report and add some things. Obviously, it was interesting to listen to Mr. Cates' report on special ed, and of course, me sitting in my office having access to things. I'm doing math as his report came out, and I can tell you I think Board Member Quinlan was maybe going there or maybe not going there, but essentially, if you look at the deafblind, the deaf, the hearing impaired, the visually impaired, that equals 0.5% of all the students that are on IEPs around the state, which if you looked at as total, that is about 110 students. And I bring that up because I think it's important for us to remember that only students that are identified by IDEA, they have to come onto campus, they have to be labeled or not labeled, have one of those categories to be eligible for services on campus. So that tells me that we have 110 students in the state of Montana identified by the Office of Public Instruction numbers that are eligible for campus services. And right now we have about 41 on campus. So that tells you that there's roughly about 60 students around the state somewhere that do meet the eligibility criteria to be on our campus. And hopefully we can get some of them or help some of those districts find some teachers of the deaf or teachers of the visually impaired for those students to stay there. So I was doing my math there. But I want to remind people that our outreach does a lot more than 110 students, are close to about 1,200, we think. And so where are the 1,100 students difference? Well, remember we serve from birth till 3. And so there's a lot of numbers that come with our early childhood numbers and working with those parents and things. And then we also serve students that in our outreach that can be on a 504, where unlike a 504 is not eligible currently for services on campus. They must be IDEA. So even though the OPI report's saying that, and I think it's probably pretty accurate that there's 110 students that have IDEA categories of what we serve, just want to remind it and get it in record that we have about 1,200 students that we do serve as a school. I want to talk a little bit about the budget that is in there. In the report, that's the end of our budget from last year. And I just want to point out that we did have to borrow money from the Office of Budget Planning and Program and Planning, and just want to be upfront on why that is. So we had to borrow roughly about just a little over $200,000 to meet all of our bills last year. I can tell you that we had 8 retirement payouts last year that we did not have predicted at the beginning of the year or even in the middle of the year. We kind of started getting those retirements mid-spring and didn't have time to do that. We have some incumbents that were new hires were hired at a higher rate than what the incumbents were. That caused some of that. Overtime, we had some overtime in our cottage system last year that we had to take care of because we were not able to fully staff that. Where unlike this year, we are fully staffed. So I will say our cottages last year had 3 wings open. This year we only have 2 wings open. And that's because we don't have all those students that were on campus. A lot of our students that graduated last year have graduated, and some are in our LEAP program, but we have not had anybody replace them in our cottages yet. However, we do have inquiries coming in, and we feel that's going to change, but currently we only need 2 cottages open, so we won't be paying that overtime. Our legal fees last year, and this is scary, was close to about $50,000 in legal fees last year, and that is using state legal services, which I know the executive committee is aware of it, but now our agency does not have legal services from the state. So we just signed a contract with an attorney, and those fees will be triple of what we paid. So if we have a year like last year, that's close to $150,000 in legal fees. That is currently not in our budget. So that's got my attention and definitely on our radar. And then we just had some utility bills last year, especially repairs that we couldn't plan on. You know, you don't know when that water main is going to break between your 2 cottages building and need to replace that and things like that. So that's where that extra $200,000 went. Other than that, our budget looked good, and proud of our administrators for watching their budget and making the best out of it. So just wanted to kind of cover that. Just to let you know, I'm sure you saw in the news, I know OPI put it out and reinforced it, and I do believe that maybe McCall was on an email from Daniel Seibert that we are up for Cognia accreditation this year. Excited to be doing that. Hopefully we get it done. We will get it done. And I really like the process compared to what we did 5 years ago. I will tell you right now that compared to 5 years ago when we did this process, I'm impressed with the upgrades that Cognia has made, and I think that's an even stronger reason why I support the Cognia accreditation. A little bit disheartening news that I have for you. We know for the last 2 years, been working with trying to get some type of interpreter training program going. That is going, and that is moving forward, and I'll report on that more in November. But just yesterday, we received notice that the federal government has made some cuts to some programs that will start affecting us, and us being able to hire employees that are qualified to work with us. And there were 3 universities around the U.S. that provided Braille programs to help those who teach Braille or support Braille. All those programs were cut this week from Cal State, University of Massachusetts, University of South Carolina. So schools such as ours, we're going to have to be looking at setting up programs, and there are programs that have these School for the Blind, and so there are other ones. But the one that really hit me was I received an email late last night from the IRIS program, which is out of North Carolina, saying that all their funding for training rural interpreters has been cut. So that was one of the programs that had been referenced the last couple of years of partnering with our interpreting program, and now that funding is no longer available after September 30th. Before I forget, because I do a great job at forgetting when I write things down, our goalball team is getting up and running. We have a new head coach this year. They've been invited to 2 tournaments, and we are looking at hosting a tournament. And the reason I'm saying this, that if you have a special meeting, I did get an out-of-state travel request just yesterday, so just to put that out there. And would like to just now kind of switch over to the outreach update if we can. And I'll kind of start it, and then I'm going to let Outreach Director Briggs kind of talk about where we're at and things like that. But I want people to memorize MCA 20-8-102. And so what that MCA does is an object and purpose of basically MSDB the number one bullet talks about a residential school for the children. And number 2 talks about consultative services. So it says, and I'm only reading it because it's not on the screen, the school shall serve as a consultative resource for parents of hearing impaired and visually impaired children not yet enrolled in education program, and for public schools of the state where hearing impaired or visually impaired children are enrolled. So a lot of those legal fees that I was talking about earlier were dealt with this issue is what should our consultants be doing by the state statute? And so we are now taking the stance as an agency that our consultative services are for parents of hearing impaired and visually impaired children who are not yet enrolled in educational programs in public schools. So we feel our consultants should be working with parents up until they're enrolled in an educational program, but then the consultative services changed to per the MCA for public schools of the state where hearing impaired or visually impaired students are enrolled. And so that's where our consultative process is starting to change is I think MSDB in the past, and I don't know when it happened or how it happened, but has maybe turned into a consultant or an advocacy group. And last year we really found situations where we were stuck in the middle because we'd been working with public schools and then with parents, and then we had one side or the other not happy with the decision. So we went back to the MCA here and said, what are we supposed to be doing? And that's the way we're reading it is for younger students, we work with the parents, and once they're enrolled in an educational program, we start working with the public schools of the state. Not saying we don't work or have any contact with parents, but I just wanted to share that. And so now I'm going to ask Miranda to talk a little bit about what does that mean? What does our model look like? And how are we going to start serving public schools with what we feel the intent of the MCA is? So Miranda?
Thanks, Paul. I think that we kind of kicked this off when you were on the MSCB campus, and I presented to all of you then a little bit of the plan and moving to this more team-based approach. And so at the time when I spoke to you, we had talked about it being a little bit more of a slower process and that we would take this year to kind of do what we've always been doing and then roll into this new plan. And as Paul stated, we've decided that there's a little bit more sense of urgency around changing up a little bit what we're doing. So as of October 1st, our outreach consultants will really be diving, into this new model, which is dividing the state into 3 regions. So we'll have a Northwest region, a Southwest region, and an Eastern region of the state. So, and then within each of those regions, we'll have teams of people, teams that are, dedicating their expertise to providing deaf services or hard of hearing services, blind services, or low vision services. And then we'll also have a team that's focusing on early childhood and deaf blind, serving in each of those regions. With that being said, one of the things that Paul and I have been working on together is creating a letter that we're sending out to families to really address that MCA he spoke to and to gently let them know that that we are still here for them, but things might look a little bit differently because really our responsibility is to the school district. And so we'll be communicating with the school district in hopes that they're sharing with parents and making it a fully collaborative effort where no one is being left out. And then the other letter that I'm working on is a letter to school district superintendents, special ed directors, co-op directors, and even I'm going to adapt it a little bit to work for our Part C providers to let them know of this model change and how to find their consultant and to let them know that we're making this team approach where they're going to really have expertise in one of these domains. And then the other piece that is different is in the past, we have created an ROI for every single student. And we went to every single parent and asked every single parent to sign this release of information for an outreach consultant to work with the child in the school. And what we've really found through, like Paul said, with this legal process is that parents were interpreting that as their permission for us to be in the school, right? And when you read the MCA, our responsibility is really to the district, right? So we got in this position where a parent was saying, I want to fire MSCB consultant, and the school was saying, but we don't. We want to keep the consultant. So we really have outlined this MOU with school districts to kind of really outline the responsibilities of the MSCB consultant and outline the responsibilities of the school to help us be that, you know, contact with the families and just letting the families and the school districts know that truly our responsibility is to the districts and that we want to have a collaborative approach to serving students. Paul, was there anything else you wanted me to touch on?
No, I think that's good. I should have said, if you look at page 113 in your packet, I believe it's 113 is where the map is that Miranda was referring to. I hope it's the most up-to-date version. We'll make sure that it is, and if it isn't, we'll send that to McCall or Chris today. But I'm actually kind of excited because now we can start working and start providing more training to districts with the expertise and the way that you can see Miranda and her team have been working it, whether it's a deaf-blind child or a blind child or a deaf child. That child now will have that support of the team that's specialized in that, instead of maybe having a consultant that might just be really versed in deaf, but not really deaf-blind or blind. But now these students, through the school, can get access to really good teams to help those schools implement best practices. And I didn't develop the MCA, but I would have bet that was the intent of the MCA back in the day when it was created, was to really be that resource for public school districts around the state. And I think Miranda and her team has done a good job. It's been, like I said, a lot of phone calls with legal staff. And I think we also have a MOU that is going to outline to the parents and to the district and to our consultants on what everybody's job is going to be, because I'm not sure that was very clear in the past. So I'm kind of excited. At the same time, know that there's going to be some out there that are concerned that we're taking away maybe their advocacy, and that's not what our job was. But one thing Miranda didn't mention, and is we're going to be working with Montana Empowerment and some of those other advocacy groups to help parents know where they can get that advocacy. So with that, I think Miranda or I can take questions on the outreach update if there are any.
Any questions, anyone? Well, I appreciate you guys, you know, like focusing back in on what the MCA defines. That is your responsibility, that's your legal, and so that's what we're following. And it's tough when folks expect you to be everything for everybody at all times, and nobody's got the capacity for that, so. I appreciate you focus on exactly what does the MCA tell us, and what you're supposed to be doing, so well done there. Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Paul, great job on this. Appreciate the visual on 113 with the map so I could see extra. I noticed there's a lot of crossover between some of the staffing listed below, the deaf-blind staffing in particular, that are covering multiple regions together. And I realize the team approach, but is that a concern, or like, I keep thinking about the number you threw out there at 1,200. I mean, a caseload and I mean, is this an area, do we think, like, how does that number compare to the last 5 years? And do we think this caseload, is that enough staffing? Is there more staffing needed, funding for that outreach portion of what your responsibilities are?
Sure. I'm going to actually let Miranda kind of answer that, pass the buck, Board Member Slinger. But I will say, we do have some open positions, as I mentioned, with the personnel action report. that we are currently holding, that if we need more staff, there's some positions budgeted there. But for those that haven't been with us for a while, Miranda is basically working with 80% new staff. And we thought that was enough new staff right now because of the retirements we've had over the last 2 years. But I think we're going to be able to serve students and schools better with this. But Miranda, can you talk to Board Member Slinger's concern about maybe one person doing several areas?
Board Member Slinger, I agree with you. That was an area of the map that I was initially a bit concerned about as well. And part of that decision is, as you can imagine, the largest population that we serve truly are in the northwest and the southwest portions of the state. And really in the eastern part of the state, we did a deep dive as a team and really looked at how many children were identified as early childhood or deafblind in the eastern part of the state. And it's actually a rather low number. And so to justify an entire person dedicated to that area just didn't make sense. And so sharing that caseload made more sense with the eastern portion of the state. And the same with children who are I identified as truly blind or truly deaf, that caseload is just so much smaller on the eastern side of the state that it made more sense to have, one person really dedicated to case management for those kids on the eastern part of the state with the support of the teams from the northwest or the southwest.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Paul said, we do have 3 open positions. And so my eye is on that overlap in the territories if we are, if and when we're ready to fill those positions.
And if I may, Chair Tharp and Board Member Slinger, add to that, another reason that's really spurred this change is not only the MCA, yes, that was the main reason, but the other was the turnover. And we were having turnover and kids were getting left behind. So now with the team approach, a team knows about all these kids and we will have no students falling through the cracks like we have had the last couple of years. And we've been in some of Miranda's staff has been in some really embarrassing situations going into a school and asking about a kid. And I won't say what those situations are, but they've been really embarrassing for the school. And so to me, we're going to just provide better service because now we're going to have a group of staff members working on a student, that team approach instead of just one person responsible. And then that person retires and we put in a new case manager and that person leaves and that child just never has consistency, where this team approach will provide some of that consistency.
Thank you, Paul. I love that approach.
Board Member Schmidt, did you have a motion for us?
I do.
Go ahead.
If you're ready.
Yep.
I move to approve the MSDB personnel action item as listed in the agenda packet.
I have a motion to approve the personnel action item as listed in the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Rasmussen. Any discussion on those items? Any public comment? All those in favor of approving the personnel action item signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else from MSDB, Paul?
Yeah, Chair Tharp and Board Member Schmidt, just a couple of things. One is just to put a bug in your ear. Well, first I'll start with, I appreciate, I'm not sure who's there, if someone's in the audience with the MFPE union, but appreciate they working with us to sit on our contract with our staff. So you'll see the CBA agreement that's in your packet. That I feel that's a very good, and you'll see that our starting wages now, I think, meet the intent of the STARS Act, where a person can start here at 47,000, almost 48,000 at MSDB, and really appreciate the union working with us on that. And then, of course, I'll be a little selfish and just remind that when I signed my contract last year, that if we receive the STARS, we might look at maybe myself getting a little raise. So maybe that's something I can work with the MSDB committee with between now and November.
And Kim Popham is you will not need, so thank you for the words, Paul. Anything else? Anybody have anything else for Paul? All right, well done. Thank you, Paul and Miranda. Appreciate your guys' ongoing efforts. Well done. And did you have anything else for administration?
I have nothing else, except that I look forward to even more personnel action items in November, so.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 7. Montana Digital Academy report. We got Dr. Nyford here. Jason, please come to the podium. Board members, we are on page 116 of your board packet. Just flip it right through this page. I was hoping you had swag, not paper.
I know.
Sorry.
Pens? You want another pen?
So I heard that loud and clear. Swag next time.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear you.
iPads.
Yeah,
laptops.
iPads, equipment,
The silent majority.
figurines, I mean, take home
Yeah.
snapshots of me, pictures of me as an inquisitive child, it'll be really nothing like I'm sure, so.
Yeah, we saw.
Yeah, we saw lots of superhero pictures and stuff.
Mr. Chair, I'm an executive director, members of the board. My name is Jason Nyper. I'm the executive, I should say, it's my pleasure to be the executive director of Montana Digital Academy. And I might even have a couple extra minutes here, which I will for sure take, because that's kind of how I talk. But I was thinking about this on the way over this morning. This is really the start of my school year for me, and I love being in front of you. It is a retrospective as I give the report of what's happened in the last school year, but it's just a real opportunity for me to talk about the wonderful people that we work with and the extraordinary program that we've been developing over at the University of Montana. Would you mind plugging that in? Thank you. Press the escape key.
To be plugged into this one over.
Yeah.
Oh,
This one.
okay.
Here, Jeff.
Of course, I have to make things that are a little too complicated, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's fine.
So, before I get started with the update, it's really important to me to start off with, obviously, I'm in front of you every year because of my role at Montana Digital Academy, but we have a truly extraordinary staff that we work with at MTDA. And we had, the first time we had an opportunity, because we were all in the same place, we try to get together once a year in Missoula, as we do have staff spread across the state. But we had a wonderful opportunity this past year to take a team photo, which is the first time we had everyone available to do precisely that in some time. And I'm gonna continue to try to fill some time here until the slides come up.
Are we sharing my screen or this screen? Which screen are, you want me to share my screen?
No.
Okay. That's what I,
It's.
So, yeah, who's running the slideshow?
I can run the slideshow.
Okay,
of what
yeah,
you
then I
sent
think
me,
it-
So we
yeah.
don't need that. Okay, that's. what
Okay, so then we need the controller back. Does it turn out we need the extra time?
Okay, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Oh,
We don't need that.
We've got it.
Okay,
You sent me the, I got it on.
okay, yeah,
Okay, Mom.
okay, yeah, it is, but that's okay. I was just gonna try to run the slides.
Oh.
But yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, okay,
I'm
yeah,
happy.
okay, so next slide then. So this is our amazing team at the University of Montana, and what is represented here is, I have to say, this is my 28th year in education in Montana, and is by far finest group of professionals that I have worked with. There is so much expertise and passion, and more importantly, a willingness to think differently, to solve problems, not just for our team and our staff, but more importantly, for students across the state of Montana. And it's a real pleasure to work with all these folks on a daily basis. And so I'm happy to stand in front of you today and talk about all the great work that we're doing, but it's the we part that I want to be really upfront about. And I would also note that something that we're very serious about, next slide please, that MTDA is and always has been all about people. And so in a couple of minutes, I'm going to share with you our 2025 yearbook, which is our annual report. We debuted this report here at the Board of Public Education because of your role in oversight of Montana Digital Academy. And I am very excited to share with you all the progress of MTDA over the last year. So next slide, 2025 represents the 15-year anniversary of Montana Digital Academy. And to be really honest with you, I'm still stunned that it has been going that length of time. As many of you know, I was the second employee hired in 2010 when we started up. Our founding executive director, Bob Curry, who retired 3 years ago, who, by the way, still stays in touch with the program, despite not doing an 8-to-5 job for the first time in his life. He and I worked together to bring up a really fast-moving program in 2010, and we sometimes refer to that as our garage band days. And the reason why is because we were a small team with a somewhat ambiguous mission and a really huge need at the time. And when we reflect this past 6 months over our past 15 years, so many things have changed at MTDA, and it's been a somewhat slow evolutionary process, but also the number of times we've had to turn on a dime because of the factors that are dealt to us, and because we are responsive to hundreds of schools across the state of Montana and their needs as they evolve over time. It's something that we take very seriously, but also it's good to take time for reflection points of these individual pieces of the work that we do. Next slide. The one thing we are very interested in is keeping our focus where it belongs, and that's with students. And we spend a lot of our time talking about that it's not just about what will cause more work or more complexity in our operations. It's not about resources, even though that's a core part of our strategic planning process. We work really hard to keep our entire process focused entirely on students. And when I say MTDA's North Star, that's language I borrow from Mike Agustinelli, our assistant director. He mentions our North Star quite often when we're meeting in departments and in our overall team, because it's always about students for us. And we like the metrics we're going to report to you today. We like talking about new and evolutionary programs, but in the end, we know that that if we're not serving students as our core mission, then we are not getting our job done. I'm not entirely sure the audio is going to work for the video, so I will send an individual link later. We'll give it a try and see if it works.
Your kids are in the library.
It's just funny.
Okay, well, that's all good. So this past year, we started a new strategy to try to record some of the lives that we're touching across the state. And this is Callie Wood from Browning High School and Kristen Cole on our team, who's been taking an increased role in communications in our organization, put together a team from the University of Montana. There's a student-led video team at UM that takes on external projects from across the University of Montana campus. And this past year, we published 4 videos that talk about the stories across Montana Digital Academy. And what is important to us is to recognize the individual students that we're engaging with across the state. One of the challenges of a distance learning program is that you don't have the physical presence of students all the time. And in fact, that's something I missed personally very much when I left the classroom, is that even though I was interacting sometimes with hundreds of students a week, that direct presence is something that you notice and miss when you're not directly working in a classroom. And so one of the ways we're trying to tell our story to our wider audience and let people know about how students are using Montana Digital Academy is put together these vignettes of impact that we're having across the state. We published 4 in the last year. We're looking to do, I think it's 5 or 6 in the upcoming year. I will send a link to McCall so that she can spread that to you so that you can check out some of the wonderful videos we did over the past year. You may remember a year ago that we talked to you a little bit about that with our evolving program, the term enrollments doesn't really mean anything anymore because we engage with so many other constituents that we weren't engaging in previous to our expansion over the last 5 years. And so I'm really proud to report this past year, we engaged with 31,000 plus what we call engagements. And it might be tough to get past the screen with the video going, but you can get the next slide.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay.
We reported 31,000 plus engagements across all 3 of Montana Digital Academy's program. And as a reminder, an engagement can mean anything from a full semester enrollment to a teacher, to a student accessing one of our digital curriculum platform processes as part of the clearinghouse, to someone accessing EdReady for a readiness project across the state of Montana. That represents about a 3.4% increase over last year's engagements. Obviously, there are subcategories here, of which I'll talk about many of those in our statistics here in a moment, but our program continues to grow and thrive as we evolve to meet the needs of students across the state of Montana. So before I jump into specific reports, I do want to announce the world premiere of our 2025 yearbook. You may remember that last year, it was the first time that MTDA published a yearbook. I want to particularly call out Allie Riggs, who is our assistant business manager at MTDA, who not only did the design, which she was critical of part of last year, but stepped in to basically become the editor of our yearbook last year. And I am so proud of this document because not only does it show off all the amazing work that we're doing, but there's a note in here from all of our department heads, so you can see what's going on in the individual departments. It highlights new programs at Montana Digital Academy, and we found friends from across Montana and beyond to speak to some of the work that MTDA is doing and a look at the feedback from not just students, but also adults we work with across the state. This is considered to be our annual report. Again, you are the premier of this particular report, so thank you for being an audience for this particular piece. We'll share this with our board next week at our regular board meeting, and you'll probably hear about, you will hear about some of the things in this report as we talk today. So moving on now, right now, or at least as of June 30th, 2025, MTDA is essentially 3 programs. Our distance learning program, EdReady Montana, which is funded by the Dennis and Phyllis J. Washington Foundation, and the Digital Learning Clearinghouse. And I have a brief report from all 3 programs to kind of give you a sense of what's going on in our individual departments. So we'll start with distance learning, which we consider to be our traditional program. On page 24 of your yearbook is our data report for you. And you'll notice here that our enrollments in distance learning actually went down last year. But with every piece of data we're sharing now, because of the complexity of our ongoing growth, there's an asterisk there, which is that most of those, well, actually all of those enrollments that we didn't receive this past year in distance learning actually moved to clearinghouse services because they needed something that was a little more directed towards what the specific school needed for the student they were enrolling in the program. And this was not only expected, we are very pleased to see that because as we evolve and grow services at MTDA, we are trying to direct as many of our resources as possible to providing as many choices as we can to schools and students to find the best digital learning environment for all of those individual students. I have 2 numbers that specifically I want to share with you. First is our dual credit enrollment, which was 36% increase over the year before, which is obviously a very large number. I would also note that we won't have official statistics on fall for another couple of weeks as we go through our drop period. But at one point, we were looking to almost exceed that just in our fall program this upcoming year. There's been a massive increase in demand for dual credit. I think a lot of that has to do with schools that are trying to build up programs to qualify for STARS Act funding. And we strongly believe that this number will continue to grow. Our AP program, which has always been a core of Montana Digital Academy's offerings so that we can expand AP access beyond the schools that have the resources and teaching ability to offer those courses, also increased last year, a 21% increase in our AP enrollments. We also recently received our annual reports for AP scores, and it was more great news. We're still breaking down the numbers, but we exceeded state and national averages on most of the tests that we offered. And I believe it was our highest average score in the past 5 years for AP scores. And one of the things that we strongly believe in is that an online option should lead you to passing a test just like a face-to-face option does.
Thanks so much. Jason, the 454, are those unique students?
Those are enrollment. So one student in one class equals one enrollment. One student in two classes equals two enrollments.
Okay, and so the same applies for AP?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And so we are continuing to expand our AP catalog, our dual credit catalog. We're looking to also expand AP courses because we know that's something that there's a great desire in within the community. Students are obviously, again, our North Stars, so we look at what they're doing with their feet. They vote with their feet, as Dean Evans used to say at the University of Montana. And our 5 most popular classes this year, most of these are not a surprise. Spanish 1 has always been a big class for MTDA. Criminology has always been a big class for MTDA. Middle school Spanish has always been a big class for MTDA. But Writing 101, the fact that we're now offering multiple sections of our dual credit college writing course, is a sign of the direction of the program. And so we're continuing to add staff capacity there, looking at our offering, getting student feedback to make sure the class is meeting both student needs and the rigor necessary to offer offer college credit in that course. And it's something that we are a strong believer in as we continue to offer these programs. And we also offer sports officiating. We've actually deepened our program in sports officiating because there will also be efforts over the next year to also do clearinghouse courses related to officiating specific sports. And then a year ago, unfortunately, Mike was unavailable to join us today, but we reported to you something that we were a little surprised about, that our student satisfaction rate went down noticeably between 2023 and 2024. And we spent some time last year thinking about why that might be the case. And, obviously we're in a complex environment. We have students taking a wide variety of courses for a wide variety of reasons. And also, not every student gets an opportunity to choose whether or not to take an online course. That's something that we think is really important, but it's not the reality of why some students might be accessing Montana Digital Academy. It is my distinct pleasure to announce that we actually not only bounced back from last year's decrease in student satisfaction, we had the highest student satisfaction rate recorded since we started offering the survey in 2014. And we are very, very, very pleased with that number. And I have to say that a lot of this was our team getting together to find out what is it that we can do for the main office, and then more importantly, working with our instructors to see when students aren't doing well at MTDA, why is that the case? And a lot of that is really early student intervention, not unlike what a face-to-face school does to try to find out early and often when a student is not fitting into a particular environment, and then taking very proactive action to make sure that students get the wraparound support services to be successful. It's something that particularly our distance learning team has been very proactive about. They meet very regularly in an RTI style format to identify students that need additional support. And then we have 2 FTE that are specifically dedicated to that process of providing student support. Now moving on to the Digital Learning Clearinghouse, which was our new program that was created by the 2023 legislature. As a quick reminder, the large model behind Digital Learning Clearinghouse is expanding MTDA's offerings to provide everything from digital content and platforms to courses from third-party providers in order to provide students additional options with flexibility to meet their needs. And all of this, what you see in front of you, is kind of a broader model. It's like a big puzzle for us. There's a lot of technical integration here. There's a lot of structural planning. There's a lot of work with vendors. And over the last year, we've had a lot of progress in not only expanding the Digital Learning Clearinghouse, but making sure that the process was sustainable for MTDA staff. This is one of our reports that we look at internally. This is kind of our big data report. To give you a sense of this, go ahead to the next slide. Over the last program year, we served 2,906 unique engagements, which is a substantial increase over the year before. A lot of the engagements were due to individual programs we worked on with schools that had a specific need, and MTDA stepped in to assist them. For example, last year we worked with Browning Public Schools to do competency-based testing in support of their immersive language programs there, and we continue to work out individual programs with districts across the state that need something related to distance learning or digital learning, but don't necessarily know exactly what they want or need our staff's expertise to develop something custom to meet their needs. In addition, over the last year, we had several new program opportunities, next slide, which include all of these are opportunities that we worked on both internally and with vendors across the state. We had over 100 courses available. We did training and site visits in over 40 schools. We created enrichment programs. The most utilized enrichment program last year was actually our nicotine prevention program, which is something we developed based on an idea we received from a school in 2019 that they preferred an alternative to detention or expulsion for students that are caught smoking on campus. We worked on partnerships across the state, both for-profit and nonprofit organizations. By far, our largest integration is with Dick Anderson Construction. We do a pre-apprentice curriculum with Dick Anderson Construction, where we have adapted their pre-apprentice program to our systems, which we give to schools for free so that they can have students working in that pre-apprentice curriculum, ultimately to then move into jobs or face-to-face apprenticeships as part of a next step in a career development. We're, for the first time in several years, Montana now has a Code.org regional partner. That's Montana Digital Academy. And we'll be working with Code.org to expand their services across the state of Montana at no cost to schools. We also worked through 3 RFPs, including one that was dedicated to artificial intelligence tools, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And we continue to evolve the technical processes behind everything Montana Digital Academy does. And our clearinghouse is really kind of our jack of all trades. We try to figure out what schools need, develop solutions towards that, and then do the best we can to adapt those to make them as responsive as possible to the schools that we serve. And then our last department is EdReady Montana, which for those of you new to the board, EdReady is a readiness tool. The best way we describe it is that it is a highly effective competency-based tool that helps students through transitions. And so think about it this way: 8th grade math to 9th grade math, high school graduation to post-secondary mathematics, regular mathematics to advanced mathematics. If you have a gap, or would like to see if you're ready for something, thus the name EdReady, then EdReady provides an assessment, then a personalized learning pathway to get you to wherever your goal is at, and then an assessment and curriculum to move you through that process. Over the last year, we served over 25,000 engagements in EdReady services, That included 4,000 students that were working to place into college mathematics. In the past, that has been a high stakes test process that didn't offer students an opportunity to correct any deficiencies that they may have shown during a test so that they can get into their desired math course. We had 4,000 engagements that way across 8 campuses across the Montana University system. And we averaged somewhere around 5,000 active users or unique active users a month. And so this program continues to grow and thrive. We are up for a grant renewal starting in 2026 with MTDA. I'm sorry, with the Washington Foundation. We are going to go back to them and probably offer actually a bolder proposal to increase the effectiveness of Montana Digital Academy's work in this space, but also move into a greater focus on competency and proficiency-based education, and where digital learning tools can really be a part of that process. We had 2 programs over the last year that we're very proud of that are I guess that we call them beta programs for now that we're continuing to evolve. First, the math test in Montana continues to be a growing a part of schools and the way they do assessment. And we have developed a specific EdReady goal around helping students prepare for math testing so that not only are they preparing for the test, but also can get things that help fill in gaps if they're missing particular parts of the mathematics portion of that exam. And we're also working on writing placement with MSU. That's obviously a little tougher because the linear nature of mathematics leads very well to placement testing, whereas writing samples do not. And so we're trying to figure out with our partners at MSU how we can insert these tools to make that process less traumatic for both the college involved and the students that are trying to place appropriately into writing courses. Okay, this now leads me into the 2025 legislature. This was the predominant part of my report 2 years ago, as there were a number of pieces of legislation that ultimately changed Montana Digital Academy. This year, other than budget, we had relatively little, or I should say relatively few bills that impacted MTDA services. And so most of our discussion was around 2 kinds of budgeting. The first one was that in the governor's budget, there was an expansion of MTDA's budget to make the clearinghouse part of our regular budget process. So that's something we were very pleased with. It continues to allow us to do those services, and we will continue to grow that program. And then in January 2024, we were invited to present in front of the legislature on artificial intelligence. It's something we've been very aggressively researching since the release of ChatGPT in November 2022. We spoke to the board earlier on this particular topic, and we do have a relatively large quotient of nerds on our staff that have been really deepening their knowledge of this. And like we told you earlier this year, it's not like we're pro AI, we are pro taking action on AI. In fact, if anything, there are so many unknowns in this space that I think we want people whose job it is to be thinking about how this impacts not only students, but also teachers and the larger industry of higher education. And so that led to a couple of great meetings later in 2024, including a public meeting in December with several legislators where we discussed AI and gave some demos. And that led to this proposal for what we then called and are now calling the Frontier Learning Lab, which is MTDA's a department to specifically focus on edge technologies. And that turned into an amount of money put into the education budget by the education subcommittee that made it through its process and then survived ultimately to be part of MTDA's budget as a one-time only fund to start off with, and then we'll see what that looks like long term. We've been given 2 focus areas by the legislature for the upcoming 2 years. One of them is generative artificial intelligence. The other one is virtual and extended reality. And in fact, we just picked up our first ambassador for the Frontier Learning Lab, who has 5 years of expertise in integrating extended and virtual reality in K-8 STEM classrooms. And so we're very excited to move into that space as well. And I want to spend just a few moments talking a little bit about what MTDA's Frontier Learning Lab process is going to look like. We were given a fairly open mission from our friends at the legislature, which is something we really appreciate, because to be honest, we don't exactly know where these technologies are going, because they're moving so quickly. So that freedom gives us a lot of opportunities then to dig deep. So first, I want to share with you something that comes from Caitlin Byers, who actually was recently named the director of the Frontier Learning Lab. She's an employee with 3 years experience at MTDA in the student support department, and has been one of our great thought leaders. She has a sticky note sticking on her monitor, and I have a photo on it on the next slide here. And it's actually the question that we really want to focus on quite a lot. What kind of a school becomes possible because we have artificial intelligence? And that's something that I think needs to be the center question. Right now, AI is such a emotional conversation. There's lots of people that are super into it. There's a lot of people that are super against it. There is a huge maybe not useful conversation going on in social media about artificial intelligence. But the bottom line is the students have already decided whether or not AI is going to be part of their education, because they're the ones bringing it into classrooms now, right? And so for MTDA, the key question is, who do we want teaching students about artificial intelligence? Do we want teachers and librarians and paraprofessionals and administrators and adults teaching students about AI? Or do we want social media to teach students about AI, where there is very little focus on the potential trade-offs of using AI to do the everyday things that we know are a part of learning? So I want to talk a little bit about our strategies here for just a moment. Obviously, our first strategy is professional learning, and we have several strategies we'll be working on, or I should say sub-strategies we'll be working on in professional learning. We will obviously do face-to-face trainings, and in fact have done many of those over the last 2 years, and that just deepened in August. We are working with districts across the state to provide MTDA trained trainers, whether it looks like a webinar or an online course or a face-to-face course, whatever we can do to provide district services. We are all in on that process. And we like a great webinar and actually do a pretty good job, I think, of offering webinars, but we also know that the training needs to look a little different for every teacher. And so we're going to provide a lot of different opportunities and ongoing support in this process. We're currently working on a professional learning community model where we can get teachers together from multiple school districts. We've heard stories of teachers that are experimenting with AI but aren't finding a lot of interest from their colleagues. I share that perspective a little bit because I think some of my colleagues at work, even those that are into AI, get tired of me info dumping on them about whatever AI tool I discovered the night before. We get that, and we want to provide opportunities to get teachers together so that they can start to work through these tool sets and the impact of them together. And then the last strategy, and there's actually a screenshot of this on the next slide, we started a Substack, which is what I guess everyone does in 2025. But MTDA's Substack is about doing the business publicly, because we think that there's a lot of value in not only our staff and what we find that's working and not working, and what is a success and what is a failure, but we're looking to promote stories across the state of Montana, bring in as many guest writers and opportunities to share what is working and what is not working. We think that public airing of this kind of professional learning is really valuable for other students, well, actually for students, but also for teachers and professionals, not just in the state of Montana and beyond. And so that's something we'll be doing as we evolve the process. Our second strategy is direct support for schools and classrooms, and we have a novel way of doing that. Last month, we opened the nation's first AI help desk, and so anybody can email ai.help@mtda.org, and that email address will get thrown into our help desk system. And our team is well, I mean, we won't answer 3 a.m. emails, but other than that, we will answer emails back. If we don't know the answer, that's a wonderful opportunity to go research an answer to those questions. and because we know that professional learning, if it doesn't have an ongoing component, is not nearly as effective. It's really tough to provide that process without a direct connection back to those who are presenting the workshops. And so we're going to focus our effort obviously on Montana teachers, but if we have capacity, and I think we will, anyone that emails the help desk, we will do our best to try to find answers. And then those turn into interesting Substack posts, which might turn into interesting social media posts as part of that process. We also are working on providing vetted access for teachers. Not every district is either in the financial or decision-making capacity to vet and adopt a specific AI tool. And so we're going to have two strategies for this. The first one is that we're going to pick a school-friendly AI tool. It's still kind of question mark now. The next slide's got our two options there. It's probably going to be one of our vendors that have been through our procurement process. We are also going to do something that I think is pretty interesting and novel. Zach Rossmiller, who is the CIO of the University of Montana and a really great technology leader, has worked on something for the University of Montana campus called Amplify, which gives individuals access to a variety of models in a ChatGPT-like interface, but with something that is student data privacy friendly. And so any teacher in the state that wants access either to our school-facing AI tool or our Amplify tool can come to MTDA and access it at no cost. We will get permission from schools. We don't want rogue actors in this space with the amount of uncertainty that's happening right now in AI, but we will do that as well. The next shot just gives you a sense of what that looks like. This is UM's Amplify tool. We're going to roll up a K-12 version of this. Our main partner on this is Amazon Web Services, who is excited to have a K-12 partner to work with, and we hope to have some updates on that soon. We also engage in a procurement process, and on the next screen is our 7 launch partners, School AI, Scribble, TrueMark, Eddy, which is actually a back office tool for school district business officials and offices, Megaminds, Vocarium, and QuantHub will be part of our launch partners. And we are also working on developing and releasing specific tools that are developed by our staff that we sometimes call unitaskers. But the idea here is we develop some tools internally for MTDA that do a really great job of things like developing curriculum assets, developing multiple choice questions, making curriculum maps, test maps, unpacking standards, all the processes that are very labor intensive and don't necessarily have people lining up the left to do. We think that AI could play an extraordinary role in helping schools both personalize curriculum for students, but also engage in instructional planning in a way where AI becomes the forefront. And then finally, we want to have fun. One of the problems about being an AI interested teacher right now is that you sometimes get a kind of an eye roll. It's very challenging technology that, as it turns out, is nothing like we've ever experienced before. And so one of the models that we experimented with at UM last year that we're going to roll across the state is something we call the AI Playdate, which is an opportunity to get professionals in a room. It's 3 hours long. And we will bring nerds for you to hang out with and talk about AI and experiment. And if you don't want to be there, you don't want to learn about multiple choice questions, but you really just want to learn how to get a recipe with AI, we'll have a nerd help you. And that notion of playing with the tech is really important because there is a huge gap right now. It's not about education, it's about everywhere. We're just sitting down for an hour with people that know what they're talking about and can give you ideas and go through kind of that IDA process is really important. So,
Jason,
yes.
is it true that you have a new theme song, Nerds Just Want to Have Fun?
Well, that's not a new song for me. Really, that's been really a part of my process to stay on. So what you see here now is MTDA's 4 departments: Distance Learning, EdReady Montana, the Digital Learning Clearinghouse, and Frontier Learning Lab. And we're so excited to be in all these new spaces. And I'll just go back to where we started. I'm just working with an amazing team. Our teachers, our staff are really next level and have an extraordinary amount of expertise to share and excitement to share with all those involved in education across the state. So we see us as your Montana Digital Academy staff. And if you ever have ideas or thoughts or want to share with us on where you think we should be going with this, we could not be more interested in chatting with you about that.
Thank you very much, Chief. Very good information. If anybody has real quick questions, we are time certain here in about another minute and a half, so. go ahead. You
Just,
got- you
actually,
got one
I need
question.
some help with a couple of terms. What's the
Yes.
difference, what, generally,
Yes.
what's the difference between artificial reality and extended reality?
Well, that's a matter of debate. So what I would say is that, yeah, no, actually, yeah. And, you know, part of that too is that it's all, I mean, there's a lot of different terms here that kind of mean the same thing, but the big picture is it's immersing you in an environment, right? So how do we create an immersive environment for you to experience something that's outside your experience otherwise?
And the second quick question, you're using a term now, flex cap, which I assume at least includes, credit
yeah.
recovery.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Can you
so
speak to
we
that?
no longer offer credit recovery programming, and there's a variety of reasons why that's the case, but we've replaced that with FlexCap. And it's still proficiency based, it's still open entry, open exit. Many districts do use it for credit recovery. But there's two things. First, any student needs access to a flexible learning model at some point or another, right? But more importantly, schools have been moving away from credit recovery environments. And so following that trend, we wanted to make the work we've done there, which is an award-winning design. We were very proud of that design. We wanted to be more responsive to where schools were going. So really, that's a program in flux. We continue to evaluate it. But it just moves beyond credit recovery now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Knight. Really appreciate the update. We are gonna be staying in recess for the balance of the day. We've got, that doesn't mean we're done. We have a lot of stuff we got going on. McCall, you wanna give us some direction?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we are gonna head to J.C. Park. Anyone is welcome to come with us to that. We're gonna be honoring some Beaverhead County veterans, listening to the Beaverhead County High School team tones. Then we're gonna come back here. You can leave your stuff in here. We'll talk about the other things later.
Okay.
No,
McCall, I have 1 minute.
sure.
I want to introduce Mr. Todd Rouse, School Board Chair of the Elementary District. So I know some of you know him, went to school with him, but thanks for being here, Todd. Wanted to introduce him. And then as far as going over there, you're not walking. There's a white van parked out front. I can take 11 of you and Mr. Rogers can take a couple of you, but can we get a show of hands who will be in the van?
I would say board members and then others. We have a car and we'll go in.
Okay.
I can take 5.
Yep, perfect.
And I will drive by the high school on the way to the park so you guys know where you're going and wow.
I know.
Okay, for those of you online or watching remotely, we are gonna be in recess until tomorrow morning at 8:30. This afternoon, we're having lunch with the kids. We're doing tours of some elementary schools, tour of the high school. Gonna be running up to Western to check out the teacher residency program and a Youth Challenge Academy tour. And so we've got a busy afternoon and we'll be back online tomorrow morning at 8:30. So the Board of Public Heads is at recess.